Welcome back to We Move Through Stormy Weather, a podcast by Storm Sound and Osiris Media. My name is Ryan Storm, and today we are back for a very, very special episode. We haven't done one of these. I think the last time we recorded one of these was like last May. We put one out early summer, but we're back for another Jam of the Year bracket breakdown here with my good friends, Brian Brinkman and Justin Bruce. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Very happy to be back together, the three of us, to podcast today. You know, we did earlier last year, we did the 2003 brackets and the 2018 ones, which were fun to go back to. And we were planning on doing 98, but we never were able to get around to doing that. I think partially due to me being like just traveling for like 4 months straight.
Yeah, we really feel for you having seen Goose all over Europe. I do have 98 Phish notes. I'm ready whenever you're done traveling.
I actually feel for him for having to see Goose Europe, but different reasons.
Okay, all right. That's not this podcast.
Oh, that's the Vibes podcast.
Exactly. Tell me about them vibes. But we're back today, and we will be looking at the 2023 Jam of the Year bracket. And we're very, very excited to look at an excellent year of Phish. I think all three of us saw some great shows together at Dick's, which is different. Since the last time we recorded, Justin and I met in real life finally. And the three of us took in some Phish together at Dick's over Labor Day weekend, which was fun.
We saw a very good Phish show together.
It was a 3-night run, right?
Just see a Phish show. It was a 4-night run. Well, it was 3.5.
It was 3 nights.
It was a 3-night run.
It was 3.5. The last night had a down with disease that was quite nice, but everything else was just horrible. But no, night one, fantastic. We hung out. We got a 20-minute Carini opener. We got a huge tweezer. I got to hear Ryan try to call every song 5 seconds before it began and then apologize when he got it wrong.
Hey, that makes me sound like I'm wrong most of the time when I do that.
You were wrong a couple of times, but you were accurate other times. It was
there
great.
You go. Give me a little credit here. But it was fun. We had a great time at Dick's together. But I'm excited to be here now. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. First, the three of us are men of various podcasts, and now Justin is a man of various podcasts. Justin, I want you to go first. Everyone knows about HF Pod. It's like, people are tired about hearing about HF Pod. Brian will tell us anyway. But Justin, you have a brand new podcast.
I do. Have you heard of the band Aggie? Because I have, and I like them a lot. And I felt dorky not having a podcast, so look up Vice or Virtue and Aggie Pod, and cranking out some early episodes. It's been fun to dive into some Aggie jams. It's been fun in our group chat to troll Ryan about how Aggie's jamming is superior to other current jam bands that may or may not be going through some changes. So Vice or Virtue and Aggie Pod.
It's an excellent podcast. I've listened to the first episode. We've got a good friend of the pod that is on it in an upcoming episode, maybe episode 2. I don't want to tell you how your show is being distributed.
I'm taking notes, and you are correct.
You don't?
We're going to have our pal Nola Socks on episode 2, and we're going to talk about some phenomenal Aggie shows from fall of 2023.
Amazing.
It's a great show. Justin is a fantastic host, and Aggie is at that point in their career where they're primed for analysis and brutal criticism. So welcome.
The brutal criticism will come, Brian, when you make an appearance on the podcast.
That's got nothing critical to say about Aggie at this point in time. They are amazing.
Anyway, this is a Phish podcast, and you also have a Phish podcast. Brian, why don't you just quickly tell the people about what's going on in HF Pod world right now?
We are building off of the 40 for 40 series that we did last year. We are doing another series in 2024. We've taken the community's vibes and views and opinions around the 25 best tours in Phish history, and we've tweaked it a little bit. We are counting down the 25 best tours in Phish history according to you and us. We kick off the episode the series on Sunday, February 4th. We'll go live with our 25th tour, which is Fall 1996, a fantastic tour in Phish history, a formative tour, a transitional tour, a tour that
We're not
Lots
talking
and
about
lots
Fall
happen.
96 on this podcast, Brian.
Well, I'm just, giving a quick preview.
You
But
wanted to keep it brief.
we will continue throughout 2024, counting down. We'll have a few breaks because Phish will be playing shows. We'll be doing some random looks back at Phish history. But that's what's coming up. I also just want to note that my other podcast, Beyond the Pond, just released our episode talking about Gamehenge and the New Year's show from 2023, as well as going through our favorite concept albums in musical history, because Gamehenge is a concept album and we wanted to spin that off and talk about other ones. So that's what I got going on. But right now we are here to apply sports viewpoints to music, and I couldn't be more excited.
This is it. This is why we're here. We're here to talk about sports. And unlike in past years, where we have used the community seated Phish.net bracket for our episode here, we have created our own Jam of the Year bracket based on the three of our rankings. Now, you may be asking, how do we do such a thing? Well, the formula dictates, and we gave the formula our rankings, and the formula gave us this beautiful bracket. So we would like to thank the formula for all of its hard work in this bracket season. For those of you who don't know, the Goose bracket is also happening, and it's very exciting. But the Phish.net bracket does exist. It is being voted on right now. There will be a link in the description of the episode for you to go get involved there and check out what they're doing. Amazing work from the folks over at Phish.net. The only problem is people are really not great at ranking Phish. We took a look at that bracket and the results. And really, I was upset, but I was like, we could deal with it. And Brian basically said that there was no chance that we were using that bracket for this podcast. Among other things, Brian will have his time to explain. I think we're all gonna give our take on why we're doing a different bracket. Brian also, threatened to not come on this podcast if we didn't allow segues in our bracket. And for those of you who know me, I am a stickler for no segues in brackets because I think it gives certain jams, like the number one overall seed and clear winner of this bracket, an unfair advantage when you keep two songs together, as great as they may be together, or having a 3-song segment or whatever. But regardless, I love podcasting with Brian, and I did not want to do this podcast without Brian. So after trying to see if he was bluffing, which he was not, because Brian doesn't bluff about things like this, I caved, and we do have some segues in this bracket. I would encourage people, though you can't vote on our bracket here, go get involved on Phish.net, vote on there, but also print out our bracket. Fill it out as you listen, or before you listen, or after you listen, and let us know, if you have problems with our seating, what your jam of the year is. Let us know your opinion on whether segues should be allowed in jam of the year brackets, because I'm going to now throw it over to Brian, who's going to make the argument for the other side.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you for acquiescing, but also working alongside of what is right. Sometimes admitting that you are wrong and admitting that other people are right it's a virtue. I've done it before.
I don't think I was wrong.
I'll do it again.
I just disagree with you.
I admitted at some point in like 2017 that I was wrong. I understood why Trump was elected. I had been wrong. I got it. I figured it out. It made complete sense. Sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes we learn. This is not an endorsement. This is
this is not a politics podcast.
Not yet.
Never.
I hate to be this guy, but I do want to flip. Well, I want to flip your question into a question. Okay. What to you is the issue with segues outweighing a single song jam?
Because you have jams out of 2 songs. The band went. So, for example, the Greek tweezer simple is a perfect example. They jammed the tweezer for 43 minutes. Incredible segue into simple, which resets the improv, and there's a new journey out into Jam World, which is now, to me, that's a separate entry. That's a separate jam. And I think it's unfair, against something like, for example, going up against the Dayton Ruby Waves in the finals. Obviously, the 60-minute segment of music that is 2 jams is going to beat the 30-minute one. As good as the 30-minute one is, there's a very big difference between a 60-minute jam and a 60-minute segment of music that's 2 songs together. I think you get that reset on the improv. You get, the crowd can reel in a little bit, reset during the song, and then start the jam again. I think you look at like the 47-minute Soul Planet, for example, from 2021 versus a segment that might be 2 20-minute jams. People are usually going to pick the 2 20-minute jams because it feels less tedious, I think. People look at it and they're like, oh, okay, well, there's a second song in here. It's more engaging. Despite the fact that the improv in the longer jam may be better, I just feel like it's unfair to put multiple songs as one entry in the bracket. As good as the segue might be.
It's a well-reasoned argument. I would argue, though, that it is a incorrect reading of Phish's playing and Phish's intentions throughout their career and Phish's use of segues. In defense of the segue, I just want to read a brief definition of what a segue is. It can be used as a verb in music and film to move without interruption from one piece of music or scene to another, allowing one song to segue into the next, to move or shift from one role, state, or condition to another. From the humor magazine, the New York-born artist segued into producing films. Or it can be used as a noun, an uninterrupted transition from one piece of music or film to another. A transition from one role, state, or condition to another. That's actually a perfect segue to my next question. Now, I would argue that every time Phish transitions, which is something that they do incredibly well and consistently in their best periods of improvisation, they are resetting in some shape or form. Every time you get a modulation to a new jam segment, which then potentially leads to a new area or transitions to a darker space or transitions to a peak, they are resetting in a sense. They are in the moment saying, right now, we've reached the end of whatever this idea is. Now we're going to reset and see what this next idea is. Think of Summer 95 jams that are 45, 50 minutes long that go through multitude of terrain of music. You think of 2.0 jams, the It 46 Days, for example. There's multiple moments where
You're just
they kind
naming
of reach
jams
an
that I don't
endpoint.
like.
They reach an endpoint and then they reset. You think of that Soul Planet from Shoreline in 2021. It's a perfect example of what we're talking about here. They almost go back into Soul Planet like 3 or 4 times, and then they reset and they continue with the jam. Is that Soul Planet into jam, into Soul Planet, into jam, into Soul Planet, back into jam?
See, but
I would argue it's all a jam. My argument here, and I will finish on this point, we have 3 segues in this bracket. The Tweezer into Simple from 4/17/2023, the Energy and a Meat Stick and It's Ice from 8/2/2023.
we know what year it is.
Yeah. And the Ruby Waves into Plasma from July
And-
28th.
And Howling into Piper from Dix.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you. So 4. I would argue that in all 4 of those situations, there is nary a break. There is a direct transition from a jam idea into a song back into that jam idea. And the jam idea in the second song, this is where it gets really important, that immediately picks up the jamming space from before. In all 4 of those examples, the jamming space immediately picks up from what happened. The song is not necessarily a reset, but kind of an island as they continue.
Sure.
Go ahead.
But I think, your point about the Soul Planet, how they come back. There are a number of tweezers from 2023 where they come back to the tweezer riff in the middle of the jam and then go back out. I think there's a very big difference between that and going into a completely new song. Because they come back to the tweezer riff and go back out again. I'm still immersed in the jam. If they segue into Simple, for example, Like people are going to take themselves out. Someone might go to the bathroom, grab a drink, come back in time for the next
Well,
jam to
that's
start.
that person.
I'm
That
just
doesn't
saying
mean that that's what the band is doing.
I'm just saying there's a different reset. There's a different mindset there. And when you're ranking jams and comparing jams, I think putting them together gives an unfair advantage. Now, you and I can go back and forth like this for 3 hours. We could do our own episode. But Justin has been sitting there patiently waiting to speak, as he does when we text back and forth about the segue issue as well. But Justin, but what's your take on our bracket and why we're doing a different bracket this year?
That segue monologue was sobering in its importance. And there were some segues that I said, oh, does this qualify as a segue? And then we talked about it or texted about it and said, no, there is a little bit of a break, or the jamming styles are a bit different. So to Brian's point, I think in the jams that we have chosen to include that have segues, there is a continuity involved. I I don't know, because if I'm listening to Phish and something segues into the next thing, especially if the jamming ethos is similar, like I'm not pausing just because they sing 2 verses of Simple or something. Like to me, it's a complete picture. So, but at the end of the day, I'm just glad we're doing this pod. I thought we were going to try to keep this to maybe 2 hours, but I believe this is now a 7-hour podcast.
I was going to say, it's all Brian here. He said he wanted to keep it short and then had a whole soliloquy prepared.
I'm ready to rank, guys. I'm ready to go through.
All right. Well, lucky.
I just want to say, last thing I want to say is that we were doing this right. Okay. The other reason that we created our own bracket is because we did go through that larger list and we realized there was some carelessness, especially on the back half. There were some very strange choices that could not be justified. We all made our own rankings. As you said, Ryan, we threw this into the formula. We're all pretty much on the same page here. There's not going to be a ton of disagreement outside of the segues. This is a appreciation of 2023 and all that's goodness. As I was going through and filling out my bracket, I mean, there's stuff that is gone in the second and third round that in the moment, I would have thought that's my favorite jam that's been played this year. That is a signifier of an excellent year of Phish. This is no 2022.
Yeah, this is great. And because of this, there's no Brian's bitching segment on this podcast. He basically Brian got everything he wanted this year.
That's
and
it.
in 2024, when we go, or for the 2024 bracket, when we go back to the Phish.net one and have no segues, then he can bitch again. But
not sure we'll be doing that after.
All right.
Work we put into this.
That's a problem for next year. But yeah, it's exciting that we're going to agree on a lot of the stuff here. And if you want to watch me melt down and freak out about a Phish bracket, you can watch the Phish.net threads because I will be melting down and freaking out about some of the matchups and seedings and things that are going to lose in the first round that should be much higher.
Anger can be controlled. Anger can be controlled.
Anyway, let's dive into the bracket here. We have 4 regions. They're named after characters from Gamehenge because obviously. So we're going to start in the top left here with the Errand region. And our first matchup, we got the number 1 overall Tweezer Simple from the Greek up against the Mexico Waves. 224 is an incredible show. This is, I think, our most represented show in the bracket. There are a number of 4 entries maybe from it. I can't remember here. I know we have Split Open and Melt, Stash, the Waves, and the Ruby Waves, and the Gin.
And
so
the Gin,
I think it's definitely our most represented show here, and it's incredible. I'd really, really like to see Waves go big again. We see hints of it like this version, but then you see something like the Chicago version from the fall where it just gets cut off after a few minutes. Hoping that happens soon. But yeah, so Tweezer Simple. This is going to win the bracket with ease.
It is going to win the bracket with ease. The fact that we included the segue, so it's Tweezer and Simple as a double-headed monster, I would posit that even if it were just the Tweezer, that this probably would still win. And that's how I had this jam scored individually, but then you lump the 2 together for reasons that we've already discussed. I counted in the Tweezer 9 distinct segments of jamming.
Wow.
And then 3 additional segments of jamming in the Simple. It's discrete segments, but they all flow together seamlessly. as we have mentioned, sometimes they do rely back on the Twee Prize theme or the Tweezer theme itself, but they tend to keep advancing the jam, which involves a conversation between all four band members. You're not going to get a 43-minute jam and a 19-minute jam and over an hour of exceptional music. That can only happen if it's a four-way conversation and not if it's just Paige comping Trey and Mike thinking about Mike Gordon band and Phish being awesome. So hell of a jam. And yeah, this is not our fall 18 bracket where we talked about high floor, low ceiling, or at least that's what I said, and I made Ryan
Yep.
upset. This is heads and shoulders the cream of the crop here.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I mean, if this was just the tweezer, this is not just the best jam of the year. This is one of the greatest jams that Phish has ever played. It's multidimensional. It is a fluid full band conversation. When this happened in the moment, coming after a just horrendous set two opening call of My Soul, which came after a pretty mediocre set one. This just changed the trajectory of the entire year. It was always there. It was always kind of in waiting. You know, we heard that 224 show that you referenced. That is a top 10 show of the overall year that is packed with highlights. There's a jam from there that is on my larger list that is not on this bracket, the Chalk Torture, which is 11 minutes of just incendiary full band communication. When you have jams that are that quality that don't make it to a larger list like this, it is a sign of an excellent show. That was kind of our first indication of where Phish was going in 2023, and then we got little hints of it. We'll talk about this a bit more in the first night in Seattle. But it was this Berkeley show that really changed the trajectory of the overall year. And it was this tweezer simple, one of the best jams the band will ever play, has ever played. 60 minutes of absolute gold.
One of the best pairs of jams, you mean?
We talked about this throughout the year. The waves into Ruby Waves from Mexico. I think that this is just an important distinction in terms of what is a segue to include versus what is not. There's slight hesitation towards the end, the back end of that waves before they move into Ruby Waves. That, for me as a listener, that is what separates that as two individual jams versus one. It's a great waves though. It's just coming in a year like this, you're not going to get it going much further than round one, a round one massacre, if you will.
Yes.
Quick question: why did they jam this tweezer so long? Like back at Shoreline in 2021, they moved. Well, yeah, but in Shoreline, you know, we get it. Tahoe was almost on fire, so they moved the show at the last minute. It was kind of a reward. I mean, that spring run was fantastic. They weren't apologizing or making up for anything. I thought set one actually had decent flow, and My Soul was perhaps just to throw us off the scent, but like I guess they were just feeling it.
I was gonna say for Brian, I mean, the tweezer was an apology for the My Soul, but I think I don't know. I think it's just one of those things where they were feeling it, and I think the way that spring played out after that, I think it was really just we're gonna lay it all out here, you know, at the show tonight. And it was interesting that was the show with the like, you know, that had like audio issues, you know, uploading the soundboard after. But I think, you know, they came out great jam on the first night of tour. Second night was a little bit, you know, more flowy, you know, vibey show. But they wanted to, I think, put their foot on the gas, which they did for the rest of the, you know, for the whole Greek and LA run there.
I don't think you can discount the Greek impact though, because if you think back to the 2010 run, that is the simple on night two of the Greek in 2010 and the cities from that show as well are two transformative moments in early 3.0. At that point in time, they were not jamming in set one and they play this incredible version of cities. That venue, The sound quality is amazing. That's a very famous Grateful Dead venue. The weather in the springtime in San Francisco is very, very different than much of the rest of the country. It just has a feel to it that I think the band really locked into. And I think it was one of those, when they step on that stage, there's a sensation that they have that, you're almost thankful that they don't play there very often,
Mhm.
because ultimately that venue just like it taps into something special. You don't want them to overplay that venue and risk having kind of down shows. It's just the moment in time seems right.
There we go. Well, we've got a lot of jams from the Greek in our bracket, and we've got one in our next
Mhm.
matchup here. We've got the 8 seed Syracuse Oblivion up against the 9 seed Greek Beneath the Sea of Stars from April 19th. This matchup wasn't particularly close to me, despite what the seeding indicates. That could be because I was at Syracuse, and that's one of my favorite Phish shows I've ever seen. Getting these to the Tweezer Oblivion 2 20-minute jams back to back for only the 6th time ever in Phish history at the time. They did it again, a month later. But this Oblivion is awesome to me. This is I think the best one they've played to date. Between that and Nashville, I think for me, I don't know if you guys agree with that. But Sea of Stars, I talked about this. This is actually that Sea of Stars is up for voting in the Phish.net bracket, the thread that went up this morning. And I talked about in my explanation of my votes, I talked about Sea of Stars has been around since 2019. There have been some great versions, Mohegan 2019, Mexico 2020. I think of some really great jams out of this song, but I think it still doesn't really know what it's supposed to do in a Phish show. It has this dark star kind of open ended, could go into like free jazz mode that it does all the time. We get some dissonance, but I don't know really if it's found its true place, its true use, and sometimes it takes a few years for a song. So I'm still looking for that Sea of Stars where everything really clicks. And I'm curious what you guys think of this song and that kind of topic.
Yeah, I actually want Brian to go first because I'm curious as to which of these that you picked.
So I have Sea of Stars 30th overall in the year. I have this Oblivion 39th. I have this as the third best Oblivion of the year. I personally think the MSG one from 1229 is the best version of that song that they've played thus far. So your larger question about Sea of Stars, I don't disagree. I think that you're right that there have been some pretty standout versions, but it is kind of in this like will they or won't they. It almost feels like a song and jam version of what's the use at this point, where it feels more functional than it feels like they're willing to really let loose with it. That said, the back end of this jam contains riffing from Trey that is so intentional, so focused, so simple. It almost sounds like he's writing a song in the moment. That really, like for me, that this was the last jam I had in tier 4 of the overall year. So technically tier 3 because I have the Tweezer Simple in its own tier. I think it's just a really connected jam. It's beautiful. It fits the moment. It fits the segue that was going on throughout that second set of 419. I really like the Oblivion. I think it's great. I do think it kind of resorts to more standardized peak jamming that happened a few times throughout 2023. Didn't happen often, but it does, like on the back end, just kind of fall into a building rock peak that while I enjoy and I think it's a solid version, it does not have that same it factor that the Beneath the Sea of Stars does for me.
Justin?
I also gave the nod to the Beneath a Sea of Stars. I had this as
Huh.
my 28th jam of the year. So it's a slight upset the way that we seeded this. The Sea of Stars was a 9 seed, the Oblivion was an 8 seed. I ended up chunking the 3 Oblivions. I guess it was Syracuse and MSG at the end of the year, and the Nashville one kind of in the 40s in my overall ranking. That may be a me thing. Oblivion stays in oblivion mode as it emerges into the jam each time. It's kind of part of its charm. But the Beneath the Sea of Stars, I think, Ryan, that's a good point about it being kind of dark star in a way, but that's just what speaks to me. It's ethereal, it's beautiful, it's spacious, kind of exploration. I thought the fact, though, that this one gathered a little bit of momentum, and Trey does find a melody that kind of corrals everything and sends it somewhere by the end of the jam, was the reason I gave it the nod. It is 5 or 6 minutes shorter than the Oblivion, but yeah, for me, give me the pretty spacey, kind of darker Phish. This only goes to the second round, though, for me.
I was going to say, I either one of these jams is getting decapitated in round 2.
Right.
Next matchup, we've got the 5 seed Dix Tweezer against the 12 seed Huntsville Fuego from the second show of the summer. It's come to my attention after the Phish.net bracket came out that people don't rate the Dix Carini and the Dix Tweezer very high, which really shocked me because both are excellent jams, and they ended up very low seeded on the other bracket, which I was really not happy about, given I had both in my top 20 for the year. I think it's just really confident jamming. Night 1 of Dix, the band is clicking. But I think I want to highlight this Fuego also before it loses in this matchup. This was the first really, I think, like big jam of the summer. I think, what was it, the Sigma Oasis and Mercury, were those on night 1?
Yep.
But this was the first one that really went out there. Fuego had a hell of a year, which is incredible. That's a song, I think the three of us have spent a lot of time talking about this. That's a song that for years didn't do anything. It debuted, had huge versions in 2014, and then just kind of fell off outside of a few outliers for years and years. It was just Fuego. You're going to get 8 to 11 minutes of Fuego. Maybe they'll dip their toes in and then it'll end. And this year it went everywhere. And I remember listening to this jam on the stream in July and being like, all right, like summer tour, like we're going. Here we are. It's going to be really good. Just great jam. I went back to it for the first time in a while recently, lower half of the list, but excellent improv happening here. And I highly recommend people go listen to it if they haven't in a while.
Yeah, it's a great Fuego. I have it a little bit lower ranked than it would be here. I've got it at 62 overall in the year, so a 16 seed. But either way, I think that more speaks to the strength of the overall year of Phish. You're absolutely right. Very connected, and for that to happen on night 2 of the tour, in hindsight, it was okay. The band was pretty locked in from the start of this overall tour. The Tweezer, though, this is going to lose in the second round to the next matchup we'll talk about for me. But this was one of my favorite jams I saw all year. I think that it is very, very connected Phish. There's a moment towards the back end, about 18 minutes, where it sounds like it's winding down, and they find this very strange kind of post-peak industrial jamming space that really fits their sound right now. It really exemplified the fusion of Trey's Jedi pedal, the synths from Page, what Fishman was doing, with almost a reemergence of Mike this year in a way that I really liked. So I think it's an excellent tweezer. I'm not entirely sure how this would be ranked lower. I would be curious to hear an argument in that manner, but also not sure I need to.
Yeah, I went with the Tweezer. This was my 19th favorite jam of the year, whereas the Fuego was down in the low 50s for me. Fuego was great. It's a whole band soundscape, shows the patience, shows the listening they were doing even very early in summer tour. I mean, the fact that they had a phenomenal show early in the Mexico run, the spring tour was obviously fantastic, and then the summer tour started off really strong. Who can complain? But the Tweezer, it's got 3 distinct sections. It's pretty, it's peaceful early on. Fishman kind of takes control of things around 10 minutes, gets a little snappy. The textures, Brian, that you mentioned between Trey's more understated Jedi pedal and the synths and the room that created for Mike to kind of shine a little bit more this year was nice. There's a little Norwegian wood vibe from Trey that I hear as he's looking for some direction, but it's not overt. But then
A
as they get
CCP, if you will.
yes, which is a coincidental chord progression, right?
Yes.
That is
Yes.
the acronym Ryan uses when he doesn't want to put in your goose tease that you know you've heard. Uh, but at
See,
any
Ryan
rate,
likes to win too.
I accept a tease if it's there. Anyway.
but they're
Exactly. I
fantastic.
agree.
I just the Dick's Tweezer. Last thing I want to say about it is, for a moment, I thought it got a song I heard the ocean sing vibe to it at the end as it's getting
Yes.
kind of frothy, and I love that, all for the better. But very very good tweezer. This also for me goes to the second round, but does not make it past the upcoming matchup.
Yes, and what a matchup this one is. We've got the 4 seed Syracuse Kill Devil Falls up against the 13 seed Seattle Golden Age from April 14th. Kill Devil Falls wins this one easily for me. Kind of an underrated year for Golden Age. There are a few really great versions. We'll talk about a much better one a little bit later in the bracket. But this Golden Age wasn't really on my radar so much. But this Kill Devil Falls, one of my favorite attended jams of the year, one of my favorite jams of the year. Comes at the end of a pretty standard first set. Then they put the pedal to the metal, 19 minutes. Some of Trey's most confident and aggressive, just leading of a jam as the rest of the band just goes with him perfectly. And what a peak at the end. This was amazing. And yeah, I have it beating the Dick's Tweezer in the next round as well.
Yeah, this Golden Age, it's interesting. I had a few really close friends stand for this jam all year. I really like it. I think that it gets to the minimalism that Phish re-embraced in ways that were fantastic throughout the overall year. I think that some of the high points of the Berkeley Tweezer don't happen without this jam happening 3 days prior. It just really showcased how much the band was listening to each other. It really fit the new lighting rig. I mean, it was kind of like a redesign of what they were using in 2021 and 2022 with more kind of pixelated LEDs that gave you the sense of water. This jam really fit those lights really nicely, just right out the gates. And at the same time, there's a Golden Age that they played later in the year that was stylistically similar, but blew it out of the water in terms of deliverables. The Kill Devil Falls, though, you're absolutely right, Ryan. That Syracuse show, I don't know a single person who went to that show who didn't walk away being like, was that one of the best Phish shows I've ever seen? It's just a joyous, incredible moment. And it all kind of starts with this Kill Devil Falls. The first set's
the only single show stop the entire year.
Yeah, it's a really interesting. They've never really done that. I think this is the first year that that's happened. Other than maybe no, because even 2004 had 2 single show stops. I think ultimately this Kill Devil Falls represented for me the joy that the band was feeling on the heels of getting to MSG. It is not a very challenging jam. It's all on the Hose and Joey side, but what they do within a space that they've hung out in multiple times throughout their history, both in type 1 areas as well as type 2, is inject these sonic qualities that made the year so special. So when you listen back to it, it kind of plays a trick on your ears where you think that you're hearing something that you're not. You think you're hearing really inventive type 2 jamming, when really what you're hearing is just a really, really strong Hose jam. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is just a beautiful, beautiful moment. So I have this going to the round of 16. Excellent jam, excellent spot in the overall show and in the overall tour. My number 15 overall jam of the year.
I had this jam ranked a bit higher as the summer wore on, but then once I reevaluated everything, I realized, okay, it's amazing. The Kill Devil Falls is celebratory. It sounds as if the whole band is just rolling down a hill and there is no effort involved. It is joyous. I loved it. It's fantastic. I had it ranked 18th. The Golden Age, I really, really, really like. I voted for the Kill Devil Falls. For me, it beats the Dix Tweezer. It goes to the Sweet 16 and then gets stomped by the Tweezer Simple from the Greek. But about the Golden Age in Seattle, I just like that the textures kind of drive the melody. There are parts of this jam that are a little uncomfortable, but I think that that is a good thing. That's dark Phish. That is kind of, that's Phish that I enjoy. It's different Phish. I really enjoyed the Golden Age. It was mature. It didn't reach some pronounced peak. It was patient. But yeah, this is a phenomenal Kill Devil Falls. This is the jam that probably put the biggest smile on my face all year long.
Totally.
Yeah, amazing. Next matchup, moving into the bottom half of the Errand region, we've got the 6th seed Wave of Hope from SPAC up against the Bathtub Gin from Mexico 224 at 11. This is a solid version of Gin. This is 2023 is a really interesting year for jam vehicles because I think you had some songs that kind of took a back seat the last couple of years, step forward. You had new songs like Wave of Hope. We have so many Wave of Hopes on this bracket, which is crazy. I mean, the song is delivering. This gin, I think, pales in comparison to some of the other gins that we'd see later in the year. In hindsight, honestly, after listening to this jam again a couple of weeks ago, I honestly thought maybe I should have had the 1228 version on my list instead. It was in the bottom little bit of my list. But food for thought there. That's an underrated version that didn't make the 64 here. And then this Wave of Hope, comes from the other pairing of 2 20-minute jams in this bracket. This is obviously, or not obviously, but for me, this is the lesser of those 2 jams. We'll talk about that simple when we get there, but it's an incredible 1-2 punch here in this second set at SPAC. We love the tragedy in Vermont, the flooding, horrible, terrible, but grateful that it gave us these 2 Phish shows. Is that a bad thing to say?
No,
Yes.
I mean, I think that the band, I think that
make me a bad person.
What would you want them to come and play bad shows to signify a horrible event?
Yeah, not have Derek Trucks come out.
The fact that the music was hopefully uplifting for citizens and raised a bunch of money and brought everyone communal joy, that's a good thing. I think I would have this gin ranked a little bit higher, 8, 9 seed at the highest. I think it was one of my early favorite jams of the year. Speaking of the 224 brilliance, the only thing I want to shout out is that there was a moment on the back end of that gin where Trey sounds like he is channeling the Edge on Bullet the Blue Sky, and I am so here for that. That is my shit. But the Wave of Hope wins. I'm gonna have this lose in the next round to the next matchup. But it's a really solid 20-minute jam. 2 20-minute back-to-back pairings in a tour is a very unique, rare, special thing. When it's happening, the band is feeling it. And it is, I will just say, we have both 20-minute jam segments split because there is not a proper segue. I just want to note that for the record. Carry on, Justin.
But before I talk about these jams, did we not have the 1228 Wave of Hope on our bracket? I'm looking furiously.
It's in here.
Okay.
It's in the bottom left region. Don't worry.
I was about to lose.
Crisis averted.
Thank you.
Okay. We were criticizing other people for being bad at ranking. We'd have to scrap the podcast and redo the bracket if that wasn't there.
Okay. Phew. Phenomenal year for a Wave of Hope. I, of course, gave the nod to the SPAC version here. I like that it's peaky, then it gets contemplative, it's lyrical, but it's not trite as it comes home and gets into that simple. I remember texting you all thinking, could we include this as a segue? And we decided, no, okay, it's not necessarily similar jamming styles, but a great pairing of music. The gin is phenomenal. I remember us texting about it early in 2023, thinking, hey, what do you think about the shows last night? And yeah, the gin definitely stood out. But yeah, the SPAC Wave of Hope, it was in my top 25 jams for the year. It only goes to the second round for me, but a delightful wave of hope in a year with many, many waves of hope.
Next matchup, we've got the 3-seed Greek Fuego up against the 14-seed LA Split Open and Melt. What a year for Melt. Another one of those songs where every version just delivered. I'll talk more about my favorite one when we get there, because I think it really deserves to be highlighted. This one just, you got a little bit of off the deep end stuff. This one, if I remember correctly, this one kind of goes a little bit brighter for a few minutes, contrary to kind of breaking form a little bit. So this one, great version, like every Melt this year. What they're doing with that song now, even when it's a like non-bracket version, like Chicago, for instance, it's still a really, really great jam. Or the the New Year's Eve one where they they come out, that they've just done Gamehenge. Trey's like, hey, do you guys know that the mountain's an active volcano? And they start 2024 with just like 14 minutes of just gnarly, deep Melt jamming. Like, yeah.
Trey knows it's an election year.
Yeah. And then is that a thing about election year Phish? Is that?
He just knows that like it's a volcano that's going to explode on all of us.
I was going to say, I'm about to.
He knows
say, like,
he knows how to kick off 2024.
Yeah, I was going to say, because if we're going for election year Phish, like the last time
they don't have a very good track record.
I was going to say the last time they had a full touring year and an election year was 2016, and we do not want a repeat of that.
Yeah, just as I'm going through it, aside from 2000, they don't really have a good track record of playing.
All right,
well. Maybe
so
88.
We're gonna pretend that that's not a real thing. And this Fuego is enormous. This kicks off the year for the song. We have many good versions that come after, but man, this Greek run, it's so interesting looking at the set list from the 3 nights, because I feel like some of the jams are in really interesting places in the set list. But this Fuego is a triumph, and there's a lot of darkness in the Greek shows, especially. This is the night after they've played the massive Tweezer Simple. If previous or recent Phish trends have allowed, they could have been forgiven for Saturday Night Special, although I think it was a Sunday or a Monday.
It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
A Tuesday night special, middle of the run, have fun, shorter jams, whatever. But no, here's this Fuego. And it's not the only standout jam from this show, which is amazing.
I think this may have been the jam that we texted the most about in our group chat. Brian, what did you have this overall for the year? I had it 9th.
I have it 10th, so we're right in the same boat. It really reveals itself slowly, because we talk minimalism, we talk about that golden age from 4 nights prior in Seattle. This is Phish just listening to each other in a quiet space and playing darkness, and no real interest in trying to push into a peak or pushing in anything bright. I just do want to add a quick addendum to a comment I made that was incorrect. 1992, that is an excellent election year Phish year. Spring 92, my God, just gorgeous. I have the Fuego going to the round of 16.
I have this Fuego at 9 overall.
So we're all pretty much in agreement on this. Yeah. I think that it's interesting that the formula bumped this down to a 3 seed when it seems as though that we all have this as a 2 seed, but that's the way it goes. The Melt, though, I just want to give a quick shout out. 422 one of the strongest shows of the year. You have this first set, which I believe this melt is in the first set, of all classic old Phish songs, and then they play Leaves randomly, which really kind
Yeah.
of fit nicely. But you're absolutely right, Ryan. This melt goes into a very bright space. Trey doesn't really employ distortion. There's no real effects. It's more just what noises can our pure instruments make, and how can Split Open and Melt be kind of tested if we're going to play it in this slot without us necessarily trying to go off to the dark side. So really cool version that just again, when you have a 14 seed like this, it is an example of an excellent year of Phish.
Yeah. And just on your comment about the ranking of the Fuego, Justin and I had it at 9, and you had it at 10, which is all 3 seed ranking. 1 through 4 is 1 seed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry for that.
I do want to.
Sometimes even our master stats man himself forgets how to count.
Can't add. Just can't do it. It's a Friday morning.
I do want to shout out just a couple things about the Fuego that I loved. But before I give it flowers, you mentioned, Ryan, in 2014, Fuego would take 10 minutes to actually depart Fuego and kind of get into the jamming space. Like, we're hanging out in Fuego land for the first 10 minutes here.
Yeah.
So then we have 11 minutes of, improvisation. But I really, really dig how patient and how slow it is, how hive mind it is. I literally thought I heard grandfather clock echoey vibes at some point after 10 minutes. Phish is playing like a heartbeat type drum pattern. When they get into the second sort of jamming segment, it's all led by Mike. He's playing melodic and arpeggiated patterns that are beautiful. I thought that they might be going into Doglog at some point in this jam. If you listen, you can 100% hear that is what Mike wants to do. But Trey says, I'd rather play light next. But it all works out. And I really dig the descending riff that kind of corrals things at the end of the jam. It's beautiful. I mean, it's a top 10 jam of the year and a really phenomenal year of Phish jams.
Moving on to our next matchup here, we've got the 7 seed Mikes from October 10th in Nashville. That was still Nashville, right?
No, Dayton.
Oh, that was Dayton. Oh, my bad.
The Nashville of Southern Ohio.
There we go. The Nashville of Shohio. The 7 seed Mikes from the 7 seed Mikes from Dayton up against the 10 seed Mr. Completely from LA. Solid Mr. Completely. This is my favorite Mikes of the year. I think, I initially had MSG higher. And then after more listens, I think I'm pretty sure I bumped Dayton above it a little bit. But regardless of that, no, I lied. I have Dayton 3 spots behind Mike. So I had this 26 overall. Love that we had 2 mics with second jam this year. And then the mics that came after those 2, which didn't have a second jam, was also exceptional. I mean, please keep doing this, Phish. I love that, it wasn't one and done like in 2017. Maybe there's hope for this to be more consistent in 2024. Would love to see more versions of mics make next year's bracket. Because there hasn't been a bracket-worthy mics since 2017.
I would disagree with that point.
You're going to Deer Creek 21?
Nashville 2018.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Incredible version that goes into, right. I think, like E flat. It's a really weird,
strange modulation
approach. This is one of my rare upsets of the bracket. We talked about this at the top. This is a chalky bracket because we all came to an agreement on what our list should be and threw it into the formula. But for me, I have the Mr. Completely ranked as 25 overall in the year. I have the Mike Song from Dayton ranked as 31. So I went with Mr. Completely. I think that the thing that separates it for me, they're very similar jams in the atmospheric space that they hang out in. It kind of sounds like, just right before dawn, just like that blue sky just hewing up on the horizon. It's very peaceful, very quiet space. I think ultimately the Mr. Completely has always sounded a little bit more focused and intentional to me. And I think it's just a reflection of, spring and fall tour were modeled in very similar ways, where we had 8 shows, 3 cities, similar styles, a little bit more darkness in fall compared to summer, a lot more darkness in spring compared to summer. I think ultimately for me, spring is, in my opinion, the strongest tour of the overall year. One of the strongest tours the band has ever played. And this Mr. Completely just kind of exemplifies that little extra space that the band was playing in, where they could just kind of focus on an idea, dive into it while also exploring. The Mics from Dayton is a little bit more exploratory without resolution, but still very, very strong jams. Love them both. I have the Mr. Completely losing in the next round. So it's not as though these are like upsets tearing through the bracket.
I had these jams ranked pretty closely. I actually had the Mr. Completely as my 25th of the year and the Dayton Mics as my 27th of the year. So for me, it was also technically a slight upset. I think they're both great. Shout out to Trey in the Dayton Mics for his "If I Only Had a Brain" tease around 12:30. That'll always get bonus points with me. I really like Fishman's skittering beat, as Trey has to put in a little bit of work to push the jam uphill. I think one thing for Mike, just broader viewpoint here for Mike's, it takes a little more work to escape the shadow of Mike's song. There's just such a form and a sound to Mike's. It's always going to take some time for them to get into new space, whereas Mr. Completely also has a vibe, but it's more of a rhythmic feel that perhaps is easier to explore once you leave the structure of the song. I thought that I heard, after 9 minutes, Trey playing effects that sounded like his late 1.0 keyboard rig, little plink plinks, some metronomic little tinkles here or there, and that is also always something that's going to get a rise out of me. And I thought Trey and Paige in this Hollywood Mr. Completely were really in sync, and we're having a conversation, and it wasn't just Paige call and responsing what Trey was playing. So both fantastic jams. I gave the edge to Mr. Completely. It only makes it into the second round, though, because of what's coming next.
What is coming next? We have one of Brian's inclusions here, 15 seed, the Howling Piper from Dix, up against the 2 seed Ruby Waves from Mexico, also from 224. We got a lot of 224 in this region. Howling Piper was not on my list. Tweezer Simple was the only segue that I ranked based on my principles. I went along with it. I would have ranked Tweezer and Simple separately if that had been a thing here. But otherwise, I did not rank any of these other segue segments in this bracket, and none of them win the first round for me. And it's not particularly close. This Ruby Waves is incredible. We had it all pretty evenly ranked. I think we had it, I guess, Justin had it as a 1 seed, and Brian and I each had it as a 2. So it, wound up pretty well balanced, I think. But this jam is a force. This was the first big jam of the year. You had quote unquote big jams happening in 224 already, but this was the first one to hit 20 minutes of 2023. Coming after that Waves that we talked about earlier in the set. And I feel like, I mentioned how Waves kind of usually gets abandoned before it really gets going. I feel like it leads to whatever comes after, whatever they bail on Waves for ends up being really good. And I have more thoughts on some other Ruby Waveses in the bracket, but I'll pass this one off to you, Brian.
There's a great video that circulates in our group of friends that close friend Sam Timber took at Dick's this year. I hate the Howling. Hate. I think it's annoying. I hate the placement. I don't think it's that funny. The fact that the crowd just like goes crazy for it, like almost makes me hate it that much more. Cause just like, why are you encouraging them? Like they could be trying something here.
The vibes, man. It's the vibes.
It's the vibes. I'm not a vibes guy. I'm a truth seeker. And there's a moment where you can see me. He videotaped me reacting to them playing the Howling, and I have a very
Oh, yeah.
sarcastic response, and I'm kind of like dancing as though I'm angry. And then they move into this bliss space, and it builds into this beautiful peak. And Trey comes back in with singing the Howling, but in this new register. And like my arms go up, and I started high-fiving and hugging people. And it was this moment where you realize like this band can take absolute shit and turn it into absolute gold, like in the same moment. It is unbelievable what they do. Brilliant segue into Piper, which is also an excellent jam. Second year in a row that Piper has ended a second set. Very, very strange recurrence here at Dick's. Piper's not a set closer. Like that's just never, it's usually like midway through a set, or it opens a set in past eras. It never really closes a set. And the fact that it did it twice in 2 years is a very cool thing. But this Ruby Waves, I mean, this was my original jam of the year back in February of 2023. This is as jazzy as Phish got in 2023. It is hyper connected. Fishman and Trey are playing so fast, so aggressively. This is a preview of a lot of the kinetic jamming that we would get from this band throughout the year. I have this going all the way to the Elite 8. It loses to the Tweezer Simple, but it's an outstanding jam that every time I listen to it, I get like lost into it to the point that I have no idea when we're coming to the conclusion. That is a huge sign of a great jam for me. It's one of those jams that I can't really figure out, and I don't really want to. You know, there's a lot of jams where like segments of them, I kind of know, okay, this is coming to a conclusion and it's leading to this. Okay, this is coming to a conclusion. This is just like a barrage of noise and ideas and communication, and I'm 100% here for it. So excellent Ruby Waves. Just looking through like another bracket, it might have had a better chance, but you know, the final 8 jams of the year, that's a pretty good spot for it.
And the Ruby Waves ended up being my third favorite jam of the year. I think I had this higher, a little bit higher than each of you guys, but obviously we all adore it. Brian, for all the reasons, and Ryan, that you said. It's 10 minutes of phenomenal interplay, and Fishman is anchoring everything with his sort of snappy play. I love the interaction of the mature 4.0 tones. It's brilliant. And as it does start to evolve a bit later into the jam, with a little bit of Rhodes work from Page, it gets a little bit of a song. I heard the Ocean sing DNA in it. Has if you listen, a slight bit of Tweezer Reprise DNA in it, but it does its own thing. It doesn't lean on those tunes. So yeah, love the Ruby Waves from Mexico. The Howling and the Piper. I like how serene that the jam gets coming out of the Howling before it goes into Piper, but in between, that awful, atrocious dog howling from all 30,000 people at Dick's. I like the skronky 4.0 industrial tones. So yeah, I guess it's fun if you're on stage to have tens of
Sorry
thousands
for
of
having
people.
fun, man.
Right.
I was howling.
Phish is serious. It's not supposed to be
I'm
fun.
sure you're glad I wasn't with you at that show, because I was definitely howling.
Brian, I am surprised, just in case he listens to this, that Sam was able to take a video of you reacting to the howling, because I could have sworn that I was holding his seat for him during that entire run.
I've got the video. It's amazing. But no, you know, we can have fun. It's just like what
Can you?
Well, it's
No, I know. We're gonna talk about a jam later in this bracket soon, actually, where I want to highlight how much fun Brian does have at a show.
There are different levels of humor that people are embrace. There is a type of humor that people really enjoy when they're like 12 years old, and then usually they get over it. The Howling is like,
sorry, have you ever seen a Phish concert? Because that's basically the humor of what happens. There's a man in a dress playing a vacuum.
How the median age of a Phish show can start at
There's
like
not
46 years when you combine all the old dudes, and then eventually as they start to play some of these songs, it drops down to about 12.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to our second region here. We've got the Tila region in the top right, and we are going to kick off with our 1 seed Dayton Ruby Waves up against the Energy Meat Stick It's Ice from August 2nd, which is a 16 seed. This segment to me is not really about the improv as much as it is the incredible segues, and the segues are incredible. Segueing like that into It's Ice is not humanly possible. Like that, there's no way that that's real. And when that happened at the show, like my jaw was on the floor. I was like, there's no way they just pulled that off so cleanly. That's like when they tried to do what was it, Tube into Brother in Sacramento in 2021, and it just didn't work because you can't properly segue into that. Here, apparently you can segue into It's Ice like that. When you're
absolutely right.
Phish. But this Ruby
Absolutely
Waves is my number 2 jam of the year. It's my number 2 jam of the year. Man, it's incredible. I remember this was back before Phish ruined my jam bass streak on 1230. I was writing about this show from the couch. They went into Ruby Waves and started off really, really solid. It's another one of those jams where it's like really, really solid from the outset, and then they find that vein of inspiration kind of midway through the jam that carries them through the rest of it, that ends up being amazing. You get this like Paradise City almost vibe to the Bliss jam. You get some industrial computer jamming on the darker side, and it's cool because at this point in the year we had heard some times where like some truly bad re-entries into songs. We know in this 4.0 era, Trey loves to come back to the ending of a song at any cost. And I think by October, Fishman was trying to anticipate that a little bit, to prevent it from being as jarring. And so would try to, get Trey on the right track. And there's a point midway through the Ruby Waves where Fishman goes back into Ruby Waves, but Trey's like, nah, like we're not done. Like we're far from done, and we're gonna keep going. And I love when something like that happens, when one of them or all of them return to the song. We'll talk about the tweezers later where that happens. And then they just find a new vein of inspiration, a new vein of improv, and just keep going. But this jam is going to carry all the way to the finals, where it will get beat by the Greek tweezer simple.
Yeah, really great defense of segues there, Ryan. I appreciate that.
That wasn't a defense.
The Energy Meat Stick It's Ice singular segment of jamming. There is a riff that emerges in the Energy that reemerges in Meat Stick and reemerges in It's Ice in a really, really fascinating way. And you're absolutely right. The way that they find It's Ice out of Meat Stick, it doesn't make sense that they should be able to unify two different songs as a singular idea as they do here. Great jam. I think I have that a little bit higher than we ultimately have it ranked here. I would have had it, 12 seed. We're just picking nits at this point in time. The Ruby Waves is one of the stars of the year. You're 100% right from a segment standpoint. We talk about the difference between that and the Mexico 224 version. Like, you can hear where the band transitions to a new idea here very, very clearly. They almost end this song at about 19 minutes, and then they go back into this industrial zone, which some may track as Ruby Waves into a jam. I think it's all one full unit. The Ruby Waves back end, though, those last 10 minutes, I mean, that is just krautrock mastery. That is some of my favorite Phish of the entire year, some of my favorite Phish of the entire era. I would put that segment up against any portion of the Berkeley tweezer. And this is, I think, this is where the band is at in 2023 as we go into 2024 Phish here. They are able to connect for not just 90 seconds, not just 3 minutes, like a full 10-minute segment, and dive fully deep into it and explore an idea in a way that they weren't able to do prior to the pandemic. Even the best jams of 2017, 2018 don't have this kind of extended, let's just dive off the deep end in this sort of manner. I'm fully into it. I think it's a killer jam, killer representation of the band. Makes it all the way to the finals. Loses ultimately after 3 very strong quarters. Loses to the Tweezer Simple. Fairly, not a blowout, but it's a comfortable win for Tweezer
Can't
Simple. Though
beat
it's
2
it's a
songs.
well, you couldn't beat the Tweezer. That's irrelevant. It ultimately has a very strong showing in the finals.
I this year randomly decided to take my rankings, my scores as the year progresses of like, oh, that's a 5, that's a 6, that's a 7. This is a great year. I had a couple of 8s on the list. And as I was going through these again at the end of the year, fleshing out the list, I started really nerding out like, oh, that's a 7.7. This is a 7.8, really just to help me flesh out my preference and order it on a list. I actually scored the Ruby Waves as an 8.5, and singularly, that's also how I scored the Greek Tweezer. So it's close for me. They're very
Great to hear.
close. I would still give the edge if it were only the Tweezer to the Tweezer. However, the 2 things that I love the most about this Dayton Ruby Waves is it's organically disorienting in its first segment. There's 3 distinct segments. Mike shines. He is just on it, heavy and natural early in the jam. Does this jubilant sort of climbing, happy ascendant thing in the middle before it does return to the Ruby Waves theme, but then to get into the good stuff. It's like 10 minutes of post-peak industrial tones, but they're light, they're quick. I got Pink Floyd on the Run vibes, which sign me up for that all day long. And then the cherry on top was they follow it up with Life Boy, which instantly transported me back to like some deep 1994 fall jams. So it was beautiful. It was brilliant. I knew the moment that I heard this that this was going to be a Jam of the Year contender.
All right, our next matchup, we've got the Alpharetta Tweezer from July 15th at an 8 seed up against the 1229 Oblivion at a 9 seed. I think I upset my rankings here. Not sure off the top of my head, but I took Oblivion in this matchup. This Tweezer is one of the long jams from this year that has never really held up super well for me on re-listen. It's a very good long Tweezer. Hard not to be, when you're Phish playing a Tweezer for this long. But the Oblivion is much more engaging jamming. Absolutely adore this peak. Just absolute joy coming out in this jam. And yeah, I mean, Brian, you mentioned this one was your favorite of the year. Not mine, but really amazing jam. Wins here and then loses to Ruby Waves in the second round.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I think, there's often a knock that if you like jams, you just like longer jams. You just want to hear the band play for a longer period of time. This Tweezer is kind of an argument that certain things should be cut off. Certain things are devoid of ideas, and certain things don't totally justify their runtime. I am all in favor of the band exploring and trying to find that space. I just don't think that they fully ever find it in this Tweezer. There's some good segments. I have it ranked 42 overall in the year. Have this Oblivion at 27. I think this Oblivion is a perfect example of efficient jamming, something that Ryan, you love. The idea of a band locking in, finding something, no wasted space, no wasted notes. This Oblivion also coming on the heels of the Chalk Dust Torture from 1229 as well. It just was a really promising segment of Phish on a really, really great night of the year, really, really great show of the year. This does not go past the Ruby Waves, but I do think that it is stronger than the Tweezer, and it's a strong, let's plant our flag. It's not just long jamming, it's long quality jamming.
Maybe it's a me thing, and I talked earlier about how it seems like when they jam Oblivion, they stay in an Oblivion jamming mode for a while. I kind of had the Syracuse Oblivion and I guess the New Year's Eve MSG Oblivion and the Nashville Oblivion, all like in the 40s as far as my overall rankings this year. So I went with the tweezer. I'm not gonna die on a hill for it. It only goes to the second round. This was my 33rd favorite jam of the year. I like that it's angular early, it's melodic, it's shimmery. Then it goes through some not unprecedented moves. It's rhythmic. In my notes, I have written clav tweet. You're welcome, Ryan. I think I
Yes.
like that Mike shines anytime Mike is engaged. I'm into it. And there's a prolonged peak. It's not necessarily trite. It doesn't spill over all at once. It kind of stretches. But this
I do
year,
like that about it.
right? They're content to ride the crest of the wave for a while. But
Totally.
right. I mean, again, this is my 33rd favorite jam of the year. I'd have to go through and see how many tweezers I liked ahead of this, but they're both good jams. It goes to the second round and dies a noble death for me against the Dayton Ruby Waves.
Gone. Absolutely just demolished there.
Fucking noob ranking a Ruby Waves over a tweezer. Come on.
We're all noobs here. That's the whole point. Speaking of noobs, we've got another 4.0 song beating an older song in the next matchup. We've got A Wave of Hope from 728 at a 5 seed up against the 718 Song I Heard the Ocean Sing at a 12 seed. This pretty easy matchup here. This Wave of Hope is amazing. Again, Statement Jam, song number 2 of the 7-night MSG run. Really amazing. One of my favorite shows of the year. But this song I Heard the Ocean Sing, the Wilmington run deservedly gets a lot of shit because it's not very good. But this jam has some really cool segments in it. I just remember feeling, webcasting it that night, I remember feeling as though it was like lots of like 99 ambient like space kind of jamming towards the end, which I think is really cool. We'll talk about 2 jams later in the bracket that kind of harken back to some late 90s themes as well that came later in the year. But yeah, this is not a jam that's going to rank very high or win this matchup, but I like it for that reason, how there's like kind of that throwback, calming ambient space to it towards the end.
Yeah, I think of this song I Heard the Ocean Sing as kind of like the floor of the year. And I feel like this is a big differentiating factor of what made 2023 so special and what makes other years not as special. Is I think if you had this jam in 2022, it's in the 30s or 40s. Like this is a still not a top tier jam, but it is a higher seated jam. This is my 53rd jam of the year. I think it's beautiful. I think it's really interesting. It touches on a lot of themes that the band explored in more depth and in more kind of risky manner throughout the rest of the year, which is why it doesn't get bumped up higher. But I really like the space that they're in. This Wave of Hope. So my number one show of the overall year is 728. I think it's just the most connected from an energy standpoint, from a flow standpoint. I got to imagine the vibes were amazing to be there, to realize like, oh my God, we've got more of this. Like this band actually is showing up at MSG for residency and elevating this tour so far. I am a big fan of context and of the idea that when a jam is played, informs part of what makes that jam special. The fact that this is the second song of the overall run, that the band locks in on this new song that is defining so much exploration and experimentation for the band, it signifies what this band is doing that is so special throughout this year. It is just cascading waves of hose over and over and over again. Trey is smiling throughout this. I have friends who texted me throughout this, just like hands in the air, like I'm so happy right now. This is the greatest music I've ever heard. Like it has that sentiment to it. It's not, but it has that sentiment to it that this is like the best music I've ever heard in my entire life. And that is a special thing that happens rarely. I have this losing in the next round too. We'll talk about it here in the next matchup, but it's an amazing wave of hope that if you have not listened to, I don't know how, but you should definitely go and check that out and then listen to the entire show.
Yeah, I have this show as my second favorite of the year. I am dumb and I like huge jams, so I just said, "All right, it's the show with the Greek night one at the Greek with the Tweezer Simple." Even though the first set is pedestrian, I'm sorry. I like the hits. I like the highlights.
No, Nola Sox made that argument to me. Josh Carver made that argument to me all year long. So you guys can celebrate that while you're talking about Eggy. That the two of you are on the same page there.
Upcoming episode of Vice or Virtue. Thanks for the plug. I love a song I heard the ocean sing. I remember in the early aughts when Undermined came out, just it's heavy. Anytime they play it and they jam it, I'm a fan. It's snappy, this Wilmington version, snappy, then funky. It's like they're almost teasing Flashlight, the P-Funk song, but the post-peak last few minutes are the highlight from Song I Heard the Ocean Sing. This wave of hope from the summer at MSG is probably the highest ranked jam I have that has an Allman Brothers theme in the middle. Just that tends to feel a bit trite to me sometimes. But this is a great jam. I love early how they are looking for what to do, but they're busy doing stuff while they're looking. And it's almost like the process of listening and still moving around while they wait to figure out where they're going to go. It's very satisfying. So this goes for me, to the second round. But yeah, it's super solid. Wave of hope in a year. Very strong wave of hopes.
Our next matchup here, and this is the one where I want to talk about Brian for a second. We've got the 4 seed Dix Carini up against the 13 seed 8-1 MSG Wolfmans. This Carini, first song in the run. You know, this was both of yours, your first Phish shows of the year. You know, you guys both were only able to catch Dix. Luckily, that's going to change this year, but we'll talk about that later. But I just remember, first of all, I was so excited to finally be taking in a show with the two of you. But also watching Brian just like lose his mind during the peak of this Carini as Phish came out at Dick's and just dropped a 20-minute jam. It's like, I've had this before where I go into a show, like expectations are high. I'm really worried about what's going to happen. And it's just like, here's an amazing 20-minute jam as the first thing you're going to hear. And just watching you just like pump your fists in the air with like a huge smile on your face. Like, for those of you who doubt it, Brian Brinkman does have fun. It's possible. They just have to play a really good jam.
We have expectations, and you know, when the band fulfills them and they live up to them, it is endless joy. Yeah, this is an amazing Carini. Talk about time and place. But the thing for me that really gets me about this is 3 or 4 minutes into this Carini, they are already locked in, moving away from Carini. Justin, you talk about this like lingering in the Oblivion space or lingering in the Fuego space. There's no lingering in Carini. It is, they play Carini, they immediately go into a hypnotic jam where Trey is, you know, doing those muted chords to try to get the band thinking outside the box, and we're off and we're completely gone and we're going into a 20-minute space. I have this as the number 9 jam of the year overall. I really enjoy the Wolfmans from 8-1. I think I have it a little bit lower. I've got it at wait a second. I don't have this Wolfman's on my bracket, so yeah,
Wow.
this wins easily. I think it's a nice Wolfman's, but I have a trio of 8-1 Timber, Wolfman's, Kill Devil Falls, and the Golden Age in my honorable mentions. I think my 8-1 jams are Sample and Ghost, which I think only one of those made this list. So yeah, Wolfman's is nice, but this Carini makes it into the round of 16 for me. It's a killer jam.
That's really interesting. This Wolfman's, I just want to say, sorry, Justin, before you go, I listened to it again this morning, and I wish they played Wolfman's like this more. You know, Wolfman's tends to
swampy,
be very type 1, and then you get just the uplifting peak at the end, aside from the really terrible re-entry. It's a really fantastic version, fantastic peak. I had it lower too. I had like 48 on my list. But glad it made it in here. Glad we got to talk about it a little before it loses to this phenomenal Carini. Justin.
I think I'm the reason that the Wolfman's made it in here because I ranked it 39th. By the way, MSG4 from the summer. I think I have this in my top 5 shows of the year, more of like a whole collaborative, cumulative effort, I guess I should say. I really enjoy the Echoplex kind of plinko with the synths and the cymbals at the end of this Wolfman's. But yeah, I mean, when you have a huge jam, set 1, night 1 of a Dix run, what is better than that? Nothing for my money. I think Trey's playing like with fairly clean tones early in this jam, but he's got some backward little loops going on to give it a little bit of disorientation. And again, with this jam, I like that it kind of growls near a peak as opposed to going hog wild with just one singular moment where things climb over a mountain and then spill down the mountain. So this Dix Carini for me goes to the Sweet 16, as a matter of fact, and then faces the Ruby Waves.
Same for me. Next matchup, we've got the Split Open and Melt from Nashville at a 6 seed up against the Sigma Oasis from Huntsville at an 11 seed. This is my melt of the year. This is my melt of probably the last 3 years, if we're being honest. The only one that I may take over it is Nashville 2021. Nashville's a good place for Split Open and Melts in 4.0. But man, this is unlike any melt they played in 2023. I listened to it a couple of days ago and was just again floored by how much is going on, how cohesive it is, yet completely off the rails. All I can say is John Fishman. He is the reason for this jam being as insane as it is, because it's so fluid. There's so many different modes happening. There's that one like part of the jam where he's like pounding a tom and it's like completely disintegrated, but it's still being held together. Many different modes. The re-entry is great. It's incredible that they're able to pull something like this off, especially when it's so easy for them to just dive into, a deep abyss of effects for 8 to 10 minutes, like they do so well in so many other melts this year. Thinking of something like Dix, MSG, these other melts. I don't remember if those are in the bracket later. Dix is. But this is just such a departure from the norm and what we're used to in Split Open and Melt in 4.0, and it's amazing. More of these kinds of jams, please. This is what makes Phish so special right here. And yeah, good Sigma. The only Sigma of the year that did anything, I think, unless I'm forgetting one. The hell's up with that?
There's a good one from Burgettstown, but it does not reach the heights of this. It feels a little disjointed.
Like after 2022, I'm shocked that there's no big Sigma really from the year.
This happens every so often. If you think of like Wave of Hope is pretty special in the sense that it had this huge 2022 and then another huge 2023.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking of like Fuego had this really strong 2014 in a lot of ways. You got the Man version, the SPAC version, the Portsmouth version, and then 2015 really nothing. 2016 it starts to come back. I think that there is something when they play these new songs, it has a really strong year where it kind of debuts and really showcases everything it can do, and then kind of retreats, and then it kind of figures out where does it belong in the overall set list. So I'm guessing we're going to start to see good Sigma Oases again.
Oases?
24, 25. Oases.
I don't know if that's actually the plural form.
Let us know if anyone's listening. That would be good.
Yeah, if anyone's still listening at this point in the podcast.
We know they're taking notes so they can then fill out the Phish.net bracket correctly.
And steer 100%.
That. Good point. That's a good point. But a lot of these jams just don't end up on that bracket, The Split Open and Melt, you're absolutely right. This is my favorite melt of the year. This is my 22nd jam of the year. I was just looking at the set list. 10-7 Saturday night in Nashville was a really, really good show. It is apparently the band's 2001st show, so they opened up with 2001. I don't know if that's exactly accurate. According to Phish.net, the 2001st show would have been night 3 or 4 of Dick's. But hey, picking nits again. Come on. We're not complaining about Kevin Shapiro still not releasing 7/25/99, are we? This is a great
Maybe
show.
we are.
It's got really good flow. This Split Up in a Melt. You're absolutely right, Ryan. This is most similar to me to the Hollywood version, but where that one kind of eschews any sort of effects, this embraces effects, but adds that brightness. So it does not dive off the deep end. It's just a fascinating, brilliant, beautiful jam. Solid Sigma Oasis. I think this is the second song of the show on 7/12. Nothing wild, nothing crazy, just a kind of what you were talking about earlier, Ryan, the sensation of, okay, if on night 2 of the tour you're going to be playing this well, what else is in store? You get that from this. But I have this Split Up in a Melt going to the next round and losing to the next matchup.
Yeah, ditto. I'll keep my comments brief because I agree with everything you guys have said. The Sigma Oasis, it's out there, but it's pleasant. And for a Phish show in Huntsville, they're lucky to have a Phish show in Huntsville. Let's be honest. I bought a car there once, and that's
You're absolutely right.
I mean, seriously.
That's it. That's
It's
it.
like-
That's all I got to say.
It's like 40 minutes east of I-65 in northern Alabama. It's the third coolest city in Alabama. At any rate, the melt is great. It's my favorite melt of the year. You guys have said everything that needs to be said, so I'll spend 20 seconds putting a plug in for Ascend Amphitheater in Nashville. If you have not seen a show there, it is a superb outdoor space. It's intimate. It's like 6,700 person capacity.
Yeah, I was going to say it's small.
When I lived there when they were building it, and I thought, dang, this is too small for Phish to play. And then Phish played in the first week that it opened in 2015, and it was awesome. But the sound is very, 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 very good. So, and Nashville's a fun place to, drink beer and eat food and have fun Phish times. But yeah, the melt only goes to the second round for me, but it's a good one in a good year.
Our next matchup is going to be the 3 seed Chalk Dust Torture from the Greek on April 22nd. No, not the Greek. I was going to say the Greek in LA. Why do there have to be 2 Greek theaters in California? That gets confusing.
Well, you don't like celebrating Greek people?
I didn't say that. We got the 3 seed Chalk Dust Torture.
There can only be one Greek theater. Only one. That's
exactly.
It.
Only one. Well, they're both in the same state.
Founded democracy. Come on, man.
Yeah.
And baklava.
How's that going? Anyway, 3 seed Chalk Dust Torture
vote.
from the Hollywood Bowl on April 22nd up against the Ruby Waves into Plasma from 728 at MSG, which is a 14 seed. Once again, did not rank the segue, did not think about the segue. Solid jams from an amazing set, which, just include that whole set as one entry. Why not, Brian? While we're at it,
segue though.
It just
we can have that conversation when
it
that
flows
happens.
so well, man. And it's
if
just
we're gonna rank
one
1994
complete
jams, we're gonna
not
rank
doing
full
that.
set segues because that's when that happens, but that does not happen here.
There's no chance. This Chalk Dust is amazing. I mean, I love it. It's going to the Sweet 16 for me before getting beat by the 2 seed of this region. But I'll leave this analysis to you guys here.
Ruby and Plasma are great. Adds to what I think is the best show of the year. Having that kick off the start of the second set, coming after more. Simple is really fantastic. Mountains in the Mist is a beautiful ballad that we get, and then Split Up in a Melt is wild. It's just a really, really great set. I want to tip my hat to my co-host here, as well as another one of my very close friends, Mr. Justin Bruce and Mr. John McGar. This Chalk Dust Torture was the most confounding jam of the year for me in the first half of the year. Speaking of admitting when you're wrong, it's important to be honest. It's important to be reflective. It's important to communicate when you got something wrong and someone else showed you the light. I did not get this chalk test when it first happened. I still remember watching the show and thinking, is Trey pissed at Fishman right now? Like, they are not connected. What is going on? And then they figure it out, but there's this like 6-minute space of I was just like, what the hell is going on? And I initially had this chalk test ranked pretty low. It was on my list,
Same.
but it was in the 40s or 50s. And I was going back through re-listening to jams when Summer Tour ended, and I remember messaging you guys, and Justin, you immediately jumping on it and just saying, am I hearing this wrong? Are these guys not connected? And your response was, think about this the way that you listen to Coltrane. Think about this the way you listen to jazz. They are playing around each other. They are playing kind of an anti-melody. They are playing anti-rhythmically. They are trying to communicate outside of the normal stretches of music. And I texted my other buddy, John McGar, about this as well. And he had a very similar response, that what he heard was them trying to connect in a way that is more challenging than a usual just hook up in the middle of the jam to kind of expand the sound. And I went back and listened to it with that mindset, and my God, you guys were right. I just couldn't hear it. I couldn't unlock it until you guys explained it. It became one of my favorite jams of the year. It's my number 11 jam of the entire year. It is in a really unfortunate spot here because I have it losing in the sixth round of 16. I guess that's accurate. And a different slotting on the bracket, it would probably go to the round of 8. But it is a magical jam, a magical journey. I encourage people out there to check it out if you have not listened. Just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Your text was very concerned when you sent that. You were like, guys, I have a really important question. I was ready for something very serious. And yeah,
Should have
I was
known.
happy to help. The fact
This
that
isn't important.
it was very important, and I
Oh,
was
it was very
glad that I
important.
could give you some guidance. I love how purposefully arrhythmic things are in that second section. I also adore, and it is subtle, but Paige, on purpose or accidentally, plays a Comfy in Nautica tease at 9 minutes and 35 seconds, a nod to Panda Bear of Animal Collective. That traded this late last, no, wait, I guess that would be 12/30, 2022 in the golden age. But oh, God, it was so, so, so wonderful. This is not just a singular peak, it's more of a rolling wave. The end of my notes, I have 3 capitalized letters, JFC, and I will just leave it at that. This is my 5th favorite jam of the year, the Hollywood Chalk Dust Torture from the spring run. The Ruby Waves into Plasma. This barely made the tourney here. It was my 63rd favorite combo or jam of the year. I really like the descending riffs that abound in the Plasma, and it's pretty unique for a Plasma. I have this Chalk Dust Torture going all the way to the Elite 8, so I guess I'm a little bit different than you guys because of that. But yeah, just brilliant. It still boggles the mind how many huge jams they played super early in the year.
It also, like, it speaks to, we're talking about a lot of these new songs that had really big years. Ruby Waves, Wave of Hope. I have 2 Chalk Dust Tortures in the top 15 of the year. This is just like an amazing year for a song that for the longest time was just a 7-minute rock song, and then it became a jam vehicle, and it keeps finding new sides to it. It's incredible stuff.
I have 2 Chalk Dust Tortures in my top 7 jams of the year, to your point. So yeah, good year for
Love
the new ones and the old ones.
Our next matchup here, we've got the 8-4 Mikes at a 7 seed up against the Dicks Split Open and Melt at a 10 seed. This Melt is special because it was the encore, and it came out of nowhere and was like, here's 17 minutes of melting your brain in a soccer stadium. Because why not?
It's good shit. I mean, I will say, I think that this Melt was a lot more fun in the moment than on re-listen.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah.
And I think, this is kind of the yin and the yang of that 10-7 version. This is the dark side of it, but it's not as accomplished as that Nashville version. But this Mike song, man, 23-minute version to open the penultimate night of the MSG residency. It doesn't really, this is kind of in the same vein to me as the Kill Devil Falls from Syracuse. It doesn't really do anything new. It's just kind of a big, peaking, lumbering jam in the best way possible.
Yeah.
But it figures out new spaces to go and new sounds to discover while it's doing a very traditional, albeit amazing, trick that Phish tends to play. So if you're going to take one of everyone's favorite songs, jam it out in a way that everyone asks, and do it in a way that it's just like white lights flashing and everyone's got their hands in the air, and yes, people are having fun, sign me up. I'm here for that.
This was my second favorite melt of the year. I gave the nod to the melt. I actually had it ranked 31st, and I had the mics ranked 37th, so it's a bit of an upset for me. It only goes to the second round because of what's coming at it next. I did like and appreciate the mics, and this is my second favorite mics of the year. I guess what was 10-7 next to the Nashville version. I like how when the second jam starts around 8:45, grabs an airy groove and it goes and goes, and it patiently and kind of gradually sizzles to a peak, so it is mature. But yeah, I gave the nod to the melt, and it's been a great couple of years for melt. You guys are my Dustin Hoffman of Phish friends. When remind me again, because I'm dumb. When did Melt start getting off the rails? Was it 2019, 20 something before that?
2017.
And or
2017.
12,
It's
29,
the
17 to a lesser degree, but really
that's the
gorge
one.
2018.
It's still, as someone
That's the
who
one.
would listen to a lot of 99 shows, and if they were having a bit of a clunker of a first set, they would try to play Melt in the last spot of set one often in late 1.0, and it just never clicked for me. It always seemed like they just got more frustrated. It just exemplifies what a gravy position we're in with Phish in 4.0. The fact that, like, it's been years, you're telling me, since late 17, early 18, it's been years, and it still boggles the mind every time they take Melt for a long walk. So it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the if you listen to early 3.0, they tried with Melt, but they did not have the tools and they did not have the capabilities again yet to really just go out on a limb and explore. It's kind of like new uncharted terrain. It's the synths that Page brought to the table in the Baker's Dozen. The Baker's Dozen version is quite good. I encourage people to check that out, but it's really that 1229 version coming on the heels of an excellent Chalk Dust Torture, beautiful Ghost, that really showcases where the band could go. But to Ryan's point, that Gorge Night 3, I think Split Up and Melt closes that second set in summer 2018. That version is special. That is some Close Encounters of the Third Kind type jamming, and from there, Camden, Vegas that we saw together,
Hampton.
Justin, where
Uh-huh.
Hampton, just
MSG,
the
yeah.
1230 MSG version.
We can keep going.
It just I don't think that there's really been a bad version since 12/29/17. I
Yeah.
don't think that there's been like a version that you wouldn't want to recommend someone listen to.
Yeah, 100%. Next matchup, our final one of the region, we've got the 15 seed Sample in a Jar from 8-1 at MSG up against the Dick Sand from 9-1 at a 2 seed. Sand, I feel like for a long time it's a hard song to go type 2 on. I think, especially just the groove is so locked in, and especially because they spent the early days of this song just exploring that groove and that rhythm. It's really difficult to break out of it, but when they do, it's really special. And this Sand was incredible, sprawling version. Just wow. I mean, I can't say enough about this. The 1-2 punch of this into the No Men, really incredible jam. one of my favorites of the year. This was another one that we had pretty even on. Brian, you and I both had it at 7. Justin had it at 12 overall. Glad it still squeaked its way into being a 2 seed here, despite that slight discrepancy. But it's special. It's going to go to the Elite 8 for me before losing to the Ruby Waves. We got all chalk going here in this region for me, and the sample's very good. Longest sample ever to date. Really solid jam. This was the point in the show. I did this show with Jeff Aravalo of Goose. This was the point in the show. This was his second Phish show ever. And this was the point in the show where I think he really was like, okay, now I get it. And loved this jam. Not so much the rest of the set after it, but loved this jam.
Did you tell Jeff to watch Fishman and then start playing like that when he goes back to his band, whatever their name is? I forget. Just kidding. I love Goose.
I did not, because Jeff is not a drummer. He's a percussionist.
Oh, right.
In Goose, at least.
Sorry.
When Jeff was watching this show, did he realize that it is not normal for band members to stand up and cheers the crowd in the middle of a jam? That it is important to keep playing and connecting with the band members? I'm glad that he was here for this because it's a really good sample in a jar. I really liked 8-1 as I'm looking back at this show. This was the Tuesday night of MSG. Really great Ghost Reba to open the show. That Wolfman's we talked about sample. I love the Kill Devil Golden Age. And then a 4-song encore. It's just a really fun overall Phish show. I agree with you though, Ryan. The back half of set 2 kind of falls apart a bit. But the Sand is an easy winner for me. 9-1 set 2 was my favorite set of the overall year. It's between this and 12-29 set 2. It's just locked in. It's the kind of Phish that it doesn't matter what song they play, because if you look at it on paper, a little bit weird on the back end, but man, when that Senses All Sounds comes in and that goes into a really cool jam space, which then finds Shine a Light, which just gives us this emotive ending. No Man in No Man's Land goes into a very blissy, very cool space of music before going into Llama. But the Sand is 24 minutes of fully connected Phish jamming. They reach a destination point and they pivot and go to another space. It's just exactly what you're looking for from a big, massive 20 plus minute long jam to kick off a second set. Those free YouTubers, they got lucky tonight. They got lucky. That is the way you want to get a free YouTube stream from the band. So I've got that Sand going all the way to the Elite 8. It loses to the Ruby Waves. What's the difference between one good jam and another? Well, that back half of the Ruby Waves. That's it. The post-peak, post-Coda jam in Ruby Waves will surpass the Sand, but still amazing Sand. Definitely the best jam I saw last year. Yeah, awesome stuff.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to look through my list and see if I yeah. When you only go to Dick's, it makes it pretty easy. That was also the best jam that I saw last year.
Especially when you're going to get a single set show somewhere in there because maybe it rains in Colorado.
So right. I was going to say, they've done 2 4-night Dick's runs so far, and both of them have had a single set show. Wonder what's going to happen this year.
Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll be in a historic drought across the Midwest.
Lucky.
And and we'll just have 4 uninterrupted, super hot, super dry Dick shows. Just kidding.
I am personally hoping for a 3-night run this year. 4 nights is excessive and it's too much.
But once you go 4 nights, you can't walk. That's like telling that's like telling your kids, oh, hey, instead of 30 minutes of your favorite TV show, you get 20 minutes. The melts would be huge.
Brian adds another, Phish run to his calendar for the first time in a couple of years, and suddenly he's like, "Oh, I don't want my hometown run to be 4 nights."
It's a lot. I'm a host, and I'm a devoted Phish snob. So
we've seen you in action. It's something to behold. Brian organizing people at Dick's. Moving on to our third region, the second half of the bracket, we've got the Wilson region in the bottom right, kicking off our 30-minute Fuego, number 1 seed at 7 from 729 at MSG up against the Blaze On from 421 at a 16 seed. Why don't they jam Blaze On anymore? This is the only one of the year, I think, that jammed in any meaningful way. What's up with
224? 224 is an outstanding
Oh,
version. I would encourage
yes.
you to listen to.
What
But yeah,
happened to
it's
Blaze On
been
after April?
it's been a little bit of a light year for the song. A lot of
Like,
more high
couple of
energy
years.
versions.
Yeah.
Not really. Well, 2022 had some fantastic versions of Blaze On, but yeah, it's interesting. It kind of it's in that kind of evolutionary. It's a song that they can just play, but it also has sometimes these great versions.
Yeah. This Fuego is incredible. This is another John Fishman showcase. 30 minutes, amazing jam. Shout out to me, who tweeted at the beginning of this Fuego on July 29th. Here we go, 30-minute Fuego. And then it was 30 minutes.
Wow.
I'm good at Phish, guys.
Oh, I tweeted. Wait, no, I Mastodon did. Here we go. 43-minute tweezer when they started the Greek version. So you're welcome.
I thought it was called a toot.
Yeah, it's a toot.
Sorry,
I'll toot on Mastodon.
Tell all 100 of my friends.
There are 100 people on Mastodon. Congrats.
100 of the smartest
open-minded
people.
I
thought it was just like you and like Chop. Anyway,
no, it literally is like the 100 coolest, smartest people from X or Twitter. So it's great. We've lost all the fluff. It's kind of like a Phish and Phish jamming. It's wonderful.
Oh man. Well, I mean, this Fuego was amazing. Again, as I mentioned, it's a John Fishman showcase, and the final few minutes, that last peak with those like those beautiful like dreamlike almost, but like not as like soft as you'd think dreamlike is. But those arpeggiators from Trey, you love the krautrock, Brian. Yeah.
It's amazing jamming from the band. It sounds like you're racing down the Autobahn, very Kosmish type of jamming. This Fuego for a long time was my number 2 or 3 favorite jam of the year. It's an interesting argument for wandering jamming, because you could argue that the first 17-18 minutes of the jam are kind of petering, meandering, not really focused, and then sometime around 19 minute they just connect, and it's hypnotic and it's interwoven. Just Trey and Fishman are totally locked in, and it leads to that very krautrocky dream space that you find in the back half. Those final 4 minutes are probably my favorite 4 minutes of Phish all year. This Fuego for me goes to the Elite 8. The Blaze On should not be ignored. It's a great version of Blaze On. Ryan's absolutely right. It was kind of a light year for the song, but amazing version of Blaze On in a really quality show. I've got 429 as the 19th best show of 2023. Great stuff from the Hollywood Bowl. But this Fuego ultimately takes it down.
I love the Fuego. It's interesting, Brian, that this was higher for you and settled a little bit, because for me, much of the year, it was a little lower. This ended up as my 6th favorite jam of the year. But this is unique in that this Fuego from MSG in the summer was the one jam that steadily kind of kept climbing up the charts the more that I listened to it. I actually did not have the Blaze On in my top 64 or in my honorable mentions.
There you go.
I had one. I did have a Blaze On somewhere in the 50s. I think it made our bracket. Oh yeah, the Mexico version that you alluded to. But yeah, so all Fuego, and this goes to the final 4 for me. This is actually what comes out of this region.
Wow, I say wow, and it's also what comes.
It's the one seed.
Yes, it is, and we're a chalk bracket here. Next up, we've got the 418 Bathtub Gin at an 8 seed up against the 423 Cities at a 9 seed. This was a tough matchup for me. Not all the 8-9s were tough, but this one absolutely was. I mean, this gin is amazing, but what a year for Cities, huh? Like another song that had a number of years where it just was not longer than 5 minutes outside of a few outlier versions. And this year we have 3 incredible jammed out versions from LA, MSG, and Nashville. I mean, it's just like a groove machine happening here. You had some of those jams in LA, but I went with the Gin here with the 8 seed. Again, just incredibly strong year for the song. Another great jam from the Greek. This one was in the late first set, I believe, right? If I'm remembering correctly. Yes, it was. So yeah, I mentioned the jams. The jams were kind of like in the middle of this show, late first set, early second set. But really interesting. But this Gin wins here for me.
I have the Cities winning. This is my 29th favorite jam of the year. The Gin, I have a little lower. It's 40 for me. The Gin is kind of I put it kind of in the same category. It's a little bit more focused, but I put it in the same category as the Tweezer from 715, where longer does not equal better. The Cities is just it's a ethereal dream space. I'm here for it. Midway through a kind of earlier start, if I recall correctly, to the tour finale at Hollywood Bowl. The sun was setting. It's kind of that first hint of summer. There's an argument to be made that April was the best month of 2023, at least from a musical standpoint. But you get Phish playing this outstanding tour. You get Goose playing maybe their last great stretch of music ever. Who knows?
Okay, all right, Brian. Relax.
Now he's trolling.
I mean,
Brian's always trolling me. Hey,
to
relax.
this point,
Relax.
to this point, it is. We'll see. TBD.
Okay.
April 2023 was an amazing month for Goose.
All right. This is a Phish podcast.
Phish. I'm getting back to it. Amazing month of NBA basketball. Baseball came back. Just an outstanding.
I'm surprised we made it this long, honestly.
Probably the worst thing that happened in April 2023 was that Arsenal lost 3 matches in a row that all but guaranteed Manchester United of another, or Manchester City, of another EPL win. And Arsenal just fell off after leading by 8 points in early April. But this Cities is beautiful. It's another sunrise jam. I'm here for it.
I went with Cities. Slight upset here. I had this ranked as my 42nd favorite of the year. The Greek Gin was 51st for me. I love the little trip hop shuffle that Fishman is playing with early in the Cities jam. Mike, Paige, and Trey, all 3 of them are just kind of dipping in and out of the tones and the effects buffet. I like how it falls apart after 12 minutes and then kind of reforms. And they're not in a hurry to do it. It's slow. It's kind of syrupy. It's kind of echoey. They don't push the pedal to the metal to finish things. They kind of step off the gas and let Trey do some echoplexy stuff to finish it. But for me, it's the Cities. It goes to the second round, but that's as far as it goes because of the MSG Fuego.
Next up, we've got another MSG jam here, the 5 seed Tweezer from Night 7 of MSG. Fun fact, all of our 5 seeds in this bracket are either Wave of Hope or Tweezer. And we have the other Blaze on. Actually, yeah, it's funny that I said that Hollywood was the only jammed one of the year when 2 matchups below. Here's the other one from 223 at a 12 seed. This Blaze on, solid Blaze on. You're absolutely right, Brian. This one is excellent, well deserving of its 12 seed. But this Tweezer is again a force, despite the fact that they do a little Guy Forget thing in here, and I consider Guy Forget to be in the same realm as something like Catapult or Kung, where if you're 2 minutes into the jam, you sing Guy Forget over the jam, and then you jam. I don't consider that being a separate song. Guy Forget does not have composed music. It's just kind of, lyrics sung over whatever they're doing. It's interesting that this Guy Forget is about the same amount of Guy Forget that we got on 12/28/19 in Drowned, yet this is considered a full play of Guy Forget and that one is not, which I think is interesting. But regardless, this tweezer is incredible. It's funny. I loved it so much in the moment, and then I didn't listen to it for like months after. I don't know why. And then I went back to it in the fall at one point, and I was like, "Oh yeah, like this is the shit." And it's all about that, like the wind down for me. Like, this is another one of those tweezers from this year where they come back to the riff partway through and then go out again. But for me, it's that ambient wind down where so much recently Trey has either finished a song and then jumped right into something else, or wasted no time and jumped, a jam's winding down and he'll pull a segue into something. And so when they take the time for a couple of minutes of just ambient space, let the jam dissolve on its own, love that. And I love this tweezer. Brian?
Yeah, this tweezer going to the round of 16. It's a really good jam, and it's you knew kind of they were playing that final night in MSG is a bit odd from a set listing standpoint, but they are really trying to play big songs in big slots, and you get that really cool surprise jam in set 1 from the Prince Caspian. You get this tweezer. You knew a tweezer was coming. They hadn't played tweezer yet. It goes off for a second into the Guy Forget. I have no understanding how Live Phish was tracking this when they originally released this, and Guy Forget was 23 minutes. I think you're referring to that as well, Ryan. I don't get that tracking or that thought process. I thought Phish.net got this correct. Hat tip to Phish.net for all the excellent work you do in spite of your bracket. But this tweezer is really good. I kind of, I'll be honest, I wanted to downvote this tweezer throughout the year. It felt a bit gimmicky to me. It kind of annoyed me subtly that the band on the last night at MSG wouldn't just give us a big tweezer, but instead would give us a tweezer, Guy Forget tweezer. Ultimately, at the end of the day, every time I re-listened to it, I found myself just totally taken by the music they were playing in a joyous space where I loved moments of it, but also found a lot of it contemplative and really dark and just cool stuff. The Blazon's very good. You should definitely check out the Blazon from Mexico if you haven't. Big shout out to Single Set Highlights. Seems like when the band plans a single set, they do really well, and this Blazon exemplifies that. But ultimately, this tweezer wins here and beats the next matchup that it will play to get into the round of 16.
In my notes, I have this Blazon described as it's a first show of the year type jam, but a good jam nevertheless. I ended up ranking Blazon like 59th out of the year, but the tweezer, super solid. As I listened to it, I just wrote down, they had some Guy Forget lyrics at 7 minutes, and I just left it at that. To me, Guy Forget is always going to be like 2000 in Phoenix, the night after they played the couple of Vegas shows. So unless it's that, to me, it's just a quote. So I wasn't even super engaged in the whole, how is it not? But Ryan, to your point, and it's well said.
It's like Catapult in that standpoint.
That's what I said, yeah. I just remember in the moment, as soon as they started doing it, I was like, I'm excited that I'm seeing the Guy Forget, but I was like, oh, this is going to be such a headache.
True. Just in my brain, I associate the jam that they played back in Phoenix in 2000 with Guy Forget. So,
but interesting. Oh, I get what you're saying. It's interesting.
Like, it was the first and only version I heard for a long time. So that's just how I've encyclopedia'd it up
Most
there.
of us. Yeah.
But to your point, Ryan, I like that they kind of drift back into some tweezer vibe territory at about 17 minutes into the jam. But then the groove really kind of deviates into tones and textures. They return to tweezer with a plum at 24 minutes, and then they let it fall apart again. So yeah, for me, this was the 14th best jam of the year. Goes to the Sweet 16 for me, but eventually runs in to the MSG Fuego. Actually, it runs into something else, and then it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And
Sweet
then
16.
we're going to talk about here.
Back to you.
Thank you. The 4 seed, the Seattle Wave of Hope from 414, up against the Soul Planet from Star Lake, 13 seed. Justin, you were the only one out of the three of us that ranked this Soul Planet, so I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it. But this Wave of Hope, really under the radar jam for me this year. And looking at the Phish.net bracket, it reflects that. Nobody really talked about this jam. It got overshadowed, rightfully so in some cases, by the Greek run and the Hollywood Bowl run. But to forget about how good this jam is a tragedy in the context of 2023. They come out on the first night of spring tour. Mexico, they played just short of 2 months earlier, but it's the first quote unquote tour or run of the year, if you will, Brian. And they come out on the first night and they drop this jam. It's amazing. I had it at 10 overall. Justin had it at 16. Brian had it at 23. So a little more divisive than some of our other picks, but I love this jam. I remember coming back to it for the first time in months. I think it was early fall, and just being blown away. By again, they play such a high level at the tour opener. We talked about this, for a couple of those Huntsville jams, and again, I think they came out pretty strong in Nashville in October. Like they're coming out now, and you don't necessarily need that warm up night that we've come to expect from modern era Phish. They don't always need one to get the rust off, to get it out of their system. And I think the way that 2023 was laid out in terms of tour, you had Mexico, and then it was only a couple months off, and then you had the spring run, and then only a couple months off. I guess that was 3 months off, and then you had summer tour, and then not too long off, only a few weeks in between end of tour and Dick's, and then 6 weeks before the fall run, and then another 2.5 months before MSG. But I think these kinds of runs or tours, etc., spread more throughout the year. First of all, I really like because there's Phish coming more. I think I'd rather have a year like last year than only have a really long summer tour and New Year's run. Like I love having Phish in April, and I love having Phish in October, and so I'm excited about that happening again this year with the Sphere shows. But skipping over this Wave of Hope because it's opening night of a tour, mistake. And I have it beating the Tweezer, which you guys both don't.
Bold move. I have it losing to the Tweezer, but yeah, I'm in full agreement with you. I think that this showcases where the band was at, and I think your argument in favor of more Phish if it's a shorter tour but more Phish, I'm all in favor of that. I think that they've figured something out in 2022 based on that faux New Year's Eve run that happened in April, where you had Mexico, MSG, spring tour, summer tour into Dick's. You had that break leading into the New Year's run. So that's kind of the biggest difference here in 2023, aside from the quality of music. But I think that those kind of like islands of Phish, where there is a shorter break, less commitment to being out on tour, but it allows the band's sound to really pick up quickly from one run to the next. You hear it immediately in this Wave of Hope. Early favorite jam of the year. It was very high for me. It ended up in 23. Really kind of less of a knock on the jam and more of a there's better music that's played throughout the year. And this really showcases that it was a high ceiling for this band in 2023. Just amazing stuff from them. Soul Planet, I like this version of Soul Planet. My only reason for not including it on the bracket is I don't think it ever fully realizes what is possible within it. I think that there are some amazing segments within this Soul Planet that never get fully developed, and that is a knock for me. May not be a knock for you, JB, or you may be hearing it slightly differently. But that's the reason why it didn't end up on lists for me. It's still on my honorables. I still think it's a really quality version. I think in a different year of Phish, this is probably mid 40s. I think it speaks for me just of like the high bar of entry for this year, which is again not a knock on the jam, just more my personal taste and reading.
Where did the Star Lake Everything's Right end up on your list? If you have that handy, I'll give you a moment to look because they're very
28.
complimentary.
28.
Okay.
28.
That's about where I had it. I had it around 26, the Star Lake Everything's Right. And I just A-B'd both of them. And because I thought, oh, could these be considered together? And no, but I just think that the Soul Planet, they are in to kind of some deep zones, like literally 3 minutes in to Soul Planet. So you're getting 11 minutes of type 2 jamming. The speed from Soul Planet kind of gives way to tones and discovery around 7 minutes in, and then they move into a shimmery, kind of echoey, distinct second section. I could see where you're coming from in that, yeah, it doesn't maybe fully realize either of those distinct sections. It is just a 14-minute jam at the end of the day, but I just really, really liked it. And I feel self-conscious about rating it 24th of the year, but I'll stand for it. And the pair of those jams together, ooh, what a good second set.
Well, and I will say to that,
Should
we
have
were
been a
in a
segue,
very,
Brian.
it should not. We were in a very, we were in a tough spot in summer tour at this point in time. And I do think
Yeah.
that this set and this segment really revived things, led us to Syracuse, led us to the Man, led us to MSG. I think without this, everything's right in Soul Planet. The kind of bad vibes out of Wilmington and the kind of downplaying on the last night of Alpharetta, Wilmington, night one in Burkittstown would have unfortunately carried over. It was the one moment of the year where I was actually concerned about what was happening.
Real quick, just to put pen to paper about the
Yes.
Seattle Wave of Hope, 16th favorite jam of the year for me. I love Fishman's like skittering beat that start how he's
Yeah.
doing this on actual drums with his limbs as opposed to like on some little drum machine is just beyond what I'm capable of hearing. I like the light touch of the whole band with the darker tones, and this does morph into like a Trey-led Bliss jam, but it happens kind of slowly and effortlessly and organically. So yeah, I thought I was just so impressed with what they were playing in April. But yeah, this Wave of Hope
Yeah.
for me goes to the second round.
Amazing. Next matchup, we've got the Golden Age from Nashville at a 6 seed up against the MSG Prince Caspian at an 11 seed. That's from August 5th. I'm going to let Brian really talk about the Golden Age because I know you have much to say on that jam, but I want to just highlight this Caspian for a second. This is a phenomenal, phenomenal jam. This was, the big first set jam on night 7 of MSG. Amazing, like just dark vibes, kind of funky, if you will. Those industrial tones that we love. Really excellent 15 minutes of music here. And I would urge you to go back and listen to it. I think there's so much from the MSG run that I think flies under the radar a little bit just because it's, 7 nights. There's a lot of highlights. I think this is one of the things this whole show, I feel like, doesn't get talked about as much as it does. But the Tweezer, the Caspian, and the Hood are all phenomenal and well worth a revisit. But I do have Golden Age winning here because it is a better jam.
It's interesting. I was just thinking about, like, you talk about like a lot of underrated moments from the MSG run. I almost think in a sense that there wasn't like the differentiating factor that you got in the Baker's Dozen, where it was like, okay, this is a strawberry jam, this is a jam filled jam, this is powder. MSG, the beauty of it almost felt like all the shows melded together into like one long Phish show, where you have these kind of, segments of like this big bombastic opener, and it kind of dips a little bit, but it gets a little bit deeper in terms of the music, and then you get some humor in there, and you end with this show that feels really celebratory, kind of like an encore, if you will. I love this Caspian, but yeah, the Golden Age, man, the back half of this Golden Age gets into my zone. We talk about minimalistic Phish. We talk about that Fuego, that Set Your Soul Free from the Greek back in the spring. This Golden Age taps into that Sunday night in Nashville. Having this, then move into the Dayton run and the brilliant music that we would hear there. I think this is the peak of fall, where you have 7, 8, 10, 11, those three shows. I guess you could throw in the 13th in Chicago. Like, that 5-show run in the middle of fall tour is really, really quality stuff. But this golden age just gets dark, menacing, evil. I did have to be honest to the formula, though. It is going to lose to the next jam, which was a strangely contentious piece of music that we will get into here in a second. But Golden Age, I have losing here in the second round.
I love this Golden Age. When I went back and heard it again, it just blew my mind. I ended up putting this 15th overall this year. All the adjectives, the dark, the menacing, Brian, are correct. I would add in economical. I mean, it's 16 minutes and you are, way, way out there. I like how growling and slow and grand Mike is playing. Anytime Mike feels like he could be scoring a creepy movie with his playing, I'm in. And I like that Fishman kind of drives things in a manic direction to finish out the jam, and cacophony reigns as the jam comes to a conclusion. So yeah, really high on the Golden Age. It goes to the second round. For me, it has a really tough matchup in the next round. And as far as the Caspian goes, yeah, it was fantastic. Brian, I'll use this opportunity to shout out Megan, your HF Pod co-host, and the Caspian episode that you guys did recently. Yeah, this was fun, and it's very interesting. You talk about the MSG run as not being the Baker's does and not being this night or that night. I feel that way about the entire year, in that a lot of the sounds across all of 2023 kind of pulling from the same toolbox. But the fact that they're able to take this into so many different disparate peaks and unique jams, I think it's just a testament to how well Phish is playing in 2023. Hopefully that carries over into 2024.
Up next, we've got the 3-seed Simple from SPAC up against the 14-seed Sand from Alpharetta on July 16th. Pretty easy matchup here. This Simple is phenomenal. This is, again, a foray into the darkness. The 2 of the 1-2 punch here on the SPAC Night 1 second set. It's phenomenal. It's going to carry into the Sweet 16 for me pretty easily before losing to the 2 seed of this region. This Sand is awesome. A couple of jams in this second set from 7-16, while not on the level of the previous 2 nights. The Karani and the Sand are both well worth your time to go back to. But no contest against the Simple here.
Yeah, the Simple, this is a top 20 jam of the year. I have this ranked as 17th. We talked about it earlier when we talked about the Wave of Hope. Back half of the 20-minute back-to-back jam segment. Very, very cool stuff. Despite Ryan thinking that they needed to play a bad show for a charity event, I would argue that they should play a great show for a charity event to encourage people to give more money. No, I'm just giving you crap. Awesome second set, one of the best of the year. This Simple, to me, my only nit that I pick, and I will just say it, is that it does get a touch formulaic on the back end. I do think that the modes that they get into, they do better elsewhere. But I'm all for a jam that goes into darkness, wades in that zone, hangs out there, and then figures out a way into light and peaks and gives us a euphoric celebration at the end. So excellent jam. I have this beating the Golden Age from Nashville. I like the darkness in the Golden Age more than I like the darkness in the Simple, but ultimately the resolution on the back end is going to push it over. So I have this going into the round of 16, where it will lose to a jam that we have yet to talk about, which is my pick for the Final Four from this region. More on that later, though. Great Simple. Let's get more Weekend Before Dick's runs just to warm us up. I think that that's a good thing.
I loved this Simple. This was probably one of our most texted about and argued over jams. We all thought it was phenomenal, but for me, it was a top 10. Jam, I will readily admit that yes, in the third section, the tray licks and the bright piano support and melodic mic, it's it's nothing new. However, I think the rest of the jam, including how it starts out, Hive Mind, Spacey, again Pink Floyd, On the Run vibes. I love the stuttering Phish kind of rhythms in the second section that start around 9 minutes. It's atonal, just getting out there to get out there, and the post peak kind of fade out to fuego that wraps this thing up. To my ears, just not a wasted moment in this 21 minute simple. So it was easily going to beat this sand. It goes for me to the Sweet 16. The fact that this simple can beat the Nashville Golden Age, which I'm obsessed with, I think is a testament to just how great of a jam it is. And I think the fact that the SPAC simple is a distinct 4-part kind of jamming segment is probably what pushed it over the edge. But yeah, the SPAC run was pretty good, or at least this night at SPAC was pretty good. I think I was the one saying earlier, I would rather there not be a natural disaster because if there wasn't flooding in Vermont, maybe there wouldn't have been this show. But if it helped create this simple, okay, that's nice.
Justin Bruce, noted weatherman, begging for natural disasters for content and good fish.
It works well. Now if only there could be floods in Nevada, then first of all, that would be good for the desert. And second of all, you'd have weather and you could maybe get Phish to come do some benefits.
Or
Ryan
we could
Storm does not understand the importance of Nevada in American history right now.
No.
Right. Things could have gone awry.
Are you talking about election related things?
But yeah.
Oh, we're back on it, baby.
He's talking 1865. So
yeah.
That's a deep
I'm
cut
Canadian. I don't
for
need
a
to know
Canadian.
this.
That's fair.
Next matchup, our penultimate matchup of this region, we've got the 1231 AC/DC bag at a 7 seed up against the 1013 Ghost at a 10 seed. Longest bag since Coventry, baby. It's back. 2024 is going to be year of the bag. We're going to have 4 or 5 versions in next year's bracket. I'm manifesting it right now. It's going to happen. They're going to go 20 minutes. It's going to be crazy. And not only did we get fucking Gamehenge on New Year's Eve, but we got a 19-minute AC/DC bag within Gamehenge. It was amazing. And it's grimy, and whether any aspects of the improv were pre-planned or not, I don't think it is. I've heard chatter people talking about that. I think they were like, we'll jam this for a while the multi-beast, saunters into the arena. But I was so happy when they started jamming it. We've seen hints of it coming back the last couple of years, a couple of 10, 12-minute versions, but this is it. This is finally going full type 2, getting out there, unfinished bag. Let's go. And rant.
If there's an argument online about this bag not being that good because it was pre-planned, I just am further and further reinforced to why I just communicate about Phish via text with close friends. It's a great bag. It's a theatrical bag. The fact that they incorporated jamming into Gamehenge makes the retelling of Gamehenge that much better. You're absolutely right. This is our biggest and our best bag since Coventry. A bit Trey-centric on re-listen. It's my biggest knock on it. This landed at 32 for me, so would be closer to an 8 seed, but really, really good version. Loved it in the moment. Have loved re-listens. We just dedicated a Beyond the Pond to it. Excellent version. This Ghost is sneaky good. It's the 4th song of the United Center's showing. Best show from the United Center Chicago run. followed by Albuquerque, the return of Albuquerque for the first time since June 11th, 2011, 458 shows. Very emotional moment for yours truly, but really interesting Ghost that kind of does some similar things to what First Set Ghosts have done in the past, but in a different way, kind of thematic for Phish in 2023. Same, but different. This bag ultimately, though, wins and loses to the winner of the next matchup.
I think that these are both great jams. So I actually have them ranked fairly similarly. I have the Ghost as 34th of the year. It's bright, cascading. Trey and Paige interplay is delightful. It's just confident. And Brian, to have Albuquerque get busted out in the house that Zach Levine built must have been a very special moment for you as a Bulls fan in the United Center.
Zach Levine has not built shit. You know this. I know this. There's nothing that man has built. My God.
But I ultimately...
I just got a text, Justin. You'll like this. Some deranged Bulls fan built a trade package around LeBron James and Zach Levine. And I am here for that, but I'm not here for any more of the Zach Levine story.
I couldn't resist. The bag is
Well done.
Trey-centric. It is shreddy, but it's searching. It's self-aware. Even though Trey is the focal point, it feels like a whole band effort. But it goes to the second round, and it has an unfortunate run-in with our next matchup here, young Ryan.
Thank you very much, Justin. We've got the MSG Cities at a 15 seed up against the 714 Ruby Waves at a 2 seed. This is, again, another consensus top jam of the year. Interesting, maybe not a consensus. Justin had this ranked as a 3 seed, and Brian had it at 4. I had 5 overall, but pretty happy with where it landed. I mean, this was the first big jam of Summer Tour, right? You came out night 1 of Alpharetta, and they were like, here's this incredible Ruby Waves. What a year this song had, once again. There are a bunch of versions on this bracket, 3 of them in the upper couple of seeds. Just phenomenal stuff here, and like, there's a lot going on in this jam. I listened to it yesterday while I was driving home from Cleveland, and I mean, it's just there's so much happening. It's another one of those jams where there's many sections. Fishman's pushing it. They're all playing so well, and again, it's just 2023. Like, is this like when is the last time Trey sounded this good and this confident in jams? And don't say 2015 because this is better than 2015.
Well, I don't know the question you're asking then. Because when was the last time? 2015. I mean, I would argue 2021. Probably he sounded that was so Trey centric and that was so shocking for what he was capable of doing. But yeah, I would say 2015.
I guess in terms of like clean playing and
yeah, then it has to be, because 2017, 2018, for all their strengths, are pretty sloppy, especially on the Trey side.
Yeah,
2015, 2013 reminds me of 2023
probably
in
13.
the manner that he is both expertly creative and full of risk, but also is nailing standard performances of songs in a way that harkens back to glory days in Phish history.
A brief question. How would you guys stack up 2023 to 2021? Because I feel like they're closer than most would acknowledge. I think the novelty of 2021 is what gives it the edge in everyone's mind. But if you were to just look at the jams, I feel like I'd have to think about it for a while. Maybe I'm off base here.
I think they're close. I think overall fall 2021 just can't be beat. If we're thinking about purely from an improv standpoint, it's closer than from a full year standpoint. But I still take 2021 in all the matchups.
I would too. I think the other point of it is 2021 has, and this is not Phish, but I think you have to put it in the qualifications for 2021, the JFAT tour. It felt as though everything that happened when they took the stage in Arkansas just got better, and in a way that we all needed, and in a way that was shocking. I would say the biggest drawback to 2021, comparing it as a full year, is because of the nature of where the pandemic was at that point in time. We didn't get an MSG run, and so we didn't really get to see the conclusion of that overall year. And we
Yeah.
also, because we didn't get an additional run throughout the year because of the pandemic, we didn't get to hear the band kind of transition and maybe have a step back. Whereas 2023, you have these really high highs, but because it's a full year, we get segments of summer tour that aren't as interesting, the end of the fall tour that feels a little bit like a mess, the 12:30 show that feels a little bit down, quite a bit down compared to expectations around 12:30 shows. um, I, I think though that you're absolutely right, they are more equal than people would think immediately, because I don't think the nostalgia of 2023 has sunk in the way that nostalgia for 2022 or 2021, excuse me, sunk in almost immediately. Like from that moment that they said that they were not playing the MSG run, 2021 was in the past and people started feeling nostalgic for it. We'll see how 2024 goes. If this year isn't as quality out the gates as 2023, I'm sure that you'll have people saying, man, they played so much better last year.
I think it's going to be tough for 2024 to stack up to 2023, just because I think the quality is
Totally.
substantial. So I would be ready for, in the overall collective psyche of the Phish fan base, to feel a little down on 2024. Hopefully the band just goes on one and proves us all wrong. But okay, thank you for entertaining.
We got Sphere, we got Mondegreen. Like it's happening. It's all gonna happen.
We've got Delaware and we've got Las Vegas, baby. What could go wrong?
Let's go.
Someone's going to Mexico in 2 weeks. So
Well, that's what I was gonna say. We're
that too.
gonna talk about that once we finish the bracket, because that's very, very exciting.
I will just say this matchup, I've got the Ruby Waves. This was a shock, amazing jam. You're absolutely right, Ryan. This was the first big jam of summer tour. I think it just goes off on one and never lets up for all of its 26 minutes.
Yeah.
It feels very jazzy in the way that the Mexico version does to me. The Cities, though, has some really amazing riffing from Trey. I think I would have had this Cities a little bit higher than where it ended up. I think I have this at 46. I've got the Ruby Waves at 4. In my top 6, I have 3 Ruby Waves. What a year for the song. What a year for what the band does with that song. This one goes all the way to the final 4 to me. This is the only 2 seed I have in the final 4 of our brackets. I think it's amazing. I think it's hyper locked in, killer stuff. Runs into another Ruby Waves as just a little bit more.
Justin, do you have Fuego or Ruby Waves in the final 4?
I have the Fuego in the final
So do I.
4. But it's a phenomenal Ruby Waves. This is also a jam that we argued about via our group chat. I love Mike's echoey woodblock tones around 15 minutes of this jam, while Trey and Paige kind of regroup. They're playing sort of small, but Mike is carrying the bulk of the improvisational load there. But then the full band sound reemerges from 17 to 19 minutes. One knock I have on this Ruby Waves jam is that it does tend to lean on a Soul Planet, like bump bump sort of rhythmic finish to the licks, the melodic ideas that they're playing. But that's the only complaint. I mean, this was my 10th favorite jam of the year, this Alpharetta Ruby Waves. So yeah, it's great. It goes and goes all the way to the Elite 8. But yeah, I do give the edge to the MSG Fuego.
Final reach into the bracket here, beginning with the 1 seed Shock Dust Torture from 12/29 up against the 16 seed Carini from August 2nd. I mean, this Carini is solid, but you know, it didn't have it in my 64. I wasn't really a candidate. But I mean, this Chalk Dust is incredible. This was my number 3 overall. You know, and oh man, it's amazing. I was with aforementioned our good friend Megan at this show, and sadly I was able to do a show with her because RJ was sick and couldn't make it. What a show! What a set, and what a jam! I mean, again, when there's something about these kinds of jams where it starts off out of the song in a very propulsive manner, like Chalk Dust does, and you just get that momentum and it carries through the entire jam. And this one does. You have some light, you have some dark, you have some weird. It goes all over the map in a really, really engaging way. And coming out of that, and we talked about the Oblivion that comes next already, but this is a force. This is my final four pick from this region. Very easy. Has a very easy time until it gets beat by the Greek Tweezer Simple, but it's incredible.
Yeah, right there with you. This Chalk Dust was foundational. Just an amazing jam. This gets to the heart of what Phish does so well, and kind of seems to find their past, their present, their future all in 23 minutes. There's moments midway through where I texted friends, "This might be the best music I've ever heard in my entire life." You talk about Eno led krautrock space. I mean, that's it for me. This Carini, I'm just double checking. I think I have this in my honorables. Yeah, this is in my honorables.
I think I might be the only reason that this made the bracket, because collectively
Yep.
we have it ranked as 63rd. I had this Carini as my 30th favorite jam of the year. So I
Did you see the Phish.net bracket? Are you part of the problem?
No. I can only participate in one bracket per year.
This is a repeating trend. No, I enjoyed this Carini. I thought 8-2 was a really interesting show for me. The energy meat stick ice is the highlight of the overall show, but it's a good version. This Chalk Dust Torch though is very special. I was just looking through, my top 5 of the year are the Tweezer Simple, the Ruby Waves from Dayton, the Chalk Dust, the Ruby Waves from Alpharetta, and the Fuego from MSG. I think there's an argument to be made that those 5 jams could be the jam of the year in most other years in Phish history.
Yeah.
That is just a really, really telling sign of how quality the playing was this year, right up until the end. We did not get the 12:30 show we're used to, but we got a 12:29 show that lives up to the best 12:29s in Phish history, especially the second set. So killer stuff.
I think if this was a softer year, that my top 10 jams would have the potential to be in the jam of the year discussion.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think everything for me through the Chalk Dust from Hollywood Bowl could really be a top 2 to 3 of the year.
Yeah, and I had that Hollywood Bowl Chalk Dust as my 5th. I had this Madison Square Garden Chalk Dust as my 7th favorite of the year. All the things you said, Brian. It's very Eno, very krautrocky. It swirls, it pulsates, it echoplexes, but not generically so. But it's staying put the whole time. It sounds effortless. I could have done without the wooing that tries to emerge at about 15 minutes into the jam, but that's okay. It's fine. I didn't knock it for that, but I love that Fishman pushes the accelerator as things just get weird as the jam kind of rounds home. Like I mentioned, I guess I'm the reason that this Carini made the bracket. I think it's delightful. I like the light shuffle. It's active, but it's delicate. Mike, Trey, and Paige are kind of growing as a collective unit as they're shuffling together. It doesn't have a canned peak. It's got a nice segue to Piper that didn't count for segues in this bracket, but this Chalk Dust Torture for me goes to the Elite 8. Actually have kind of a sizable upset here coming out of this bracket. I think Ryan does as well, but we'll get to that in time.
All right. Next matchup, we've got.
You sounded like Peter. You sounded like Peter there. Oh, walking out from set break. All right. Whoop, whoop.
Thanks. So next up, we've got the 8th seed, the Manuel, up against the Nashville Oblivion at a 9 seed.
White lights.
So the well to me, I love the well.
Bright
I love
lights.
the jams out of the well. This one has felt like one of the more disjointed jams of the year to me since July. Do you want to throw in another one?
White lights.
Thank you, Brian. um, it's always felt a little bit disjointed to me. Like they never really truly clicked in together as a unit during this. Well, I know that's kind of an unpopular opinion. I know people love this jam, and I listened to it again today. I had it pretty high after it happened, and it kind of dropped down my list a little bit as the year went on. I ended up with it at 33 overall, and we were kind of aligned on this. Justin, you had it at 40. Brian, you had it at 36. And it's a great jam. I have this Oblivion higher. For me, it's a better jam. Again, it's about the cohesion there. This Oblivion, actually, interestingly enough, we were a little bit split on the rankings here. I had it at 28. Justin, you had it at 50, and Brian had it at 34. So we were a little more split on this one. But I have Oblivion beating the well here. It's really about that cohesion factor. Both are great jams, but Oblivion feels like they're in sync the whole time, and the well feels like they're trying to push it further, but they're not quite keeping it together, especially when they get into that like brighter spot and Trey starts singing the well again, and then they go back into the jam. It's like it just feels a little bit forced to me, and so I don't, I dock it some points because of that. But Oblivion wins and then gets beat by the Chalk Dust.
I'm right there with you. I don't think that your opinion is maybe it's unpopular, but I think it's the accurate one. I wanted the well to be a better jam than it was. I think I originally had it ranked 10th or 11th in the year and kept it there through a couple re-listens, and then towards the end of the year just realized like, okay, what's the substance here? It feels a lot of fat and not a lot of meat, and ultimately it's a good jam. I'm all in favor of the well doing this. It's kind of like the well and Life Saving Gun feel like the songs that are going to take another step forward in 2024, hopefully. Ultimately have this Oblivion winning. This Oblivion doesn't do anything to shock me. There is nothing in this Oblivion jam that makes me think, ooh, what's going on here? It's just a very solid 22-minute long jam that follows the beats, doesn't really stray very far, but showcases that the band is ready to jam going into fall tour. I'm into it. It loses like crazy against the Chalk Dust Torture, though, which, need I remind you, has like 3 of my favorite minutes of music have ever been played.
This was a tough matchup for me. They're both kind of comparable. I had the well at 40th. I had Oblivion at 50th. I think it's a me Oblivion situation where they're just in the Oblivion mode for a long time. I could go either way with this jam. So I don't want to spend too much time on it because it gets to the second round, the well does for me. But yeah, then it runs up against the MSG Chalk Dust. So.
Next up, we've got another wave of hope. Actually, our final wave of hope of the bracket. Finally, the 12-28 wave of hope at a 5 seed up against the 10-7 cities at a 12 seed. Again, our third cities of the bracket. This matchup not particularly difficult. Love this wave of hope. This 12-28 show was amazing. Higher tier. Especially, we've seen a lot recently. Sometimes, the first night of the MSG run can be that warm-up night. It turns out night 3 was the warm-up night this time. If they had played the 12-28 show on 12:30 instead, just swap those 2 nights. I think I would have been a lot happier.
I think 12:30 needs a little bit more than that, but point taken.
Would have been way better than what we got.
It's very true.
Trey took a shit on a holiday.
I don't know if I would say that.
No, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but do you think, knowing what was coming on 12/31, they said,
Absolutely.
You know what? We're just going to, and not because they're lazy, just let's throw people off the scent. I've heard people say, oh, it was the worst kept secret in all of New York City, what they were going to do for New Year's Eve. But when you take a look at the whole 4-night package, I don't find 12:30 as offensive in the overall scheme of the run as most people do. Just wanted to put that out there.
I don't buy into the conspiracy that they tried to play a show like this. My thought is
Yeah.
more the
Nerves.
nerves got to them.
Mostly Trey.
And sure, and which is, what affects a show. I think ultimately they were thinking so much about 1231, and I'm sure that there were rehearsals throughout this run for 1231. I'm sure that these sound checks were more dedicated to, can we get 1231 right, and can we hit all the beats, than let's just get up on stage and jam. I think in years past, the New Year's gag is a little bit more of just a gag, and it's a little bit more of an afterthought. This 1230 reminded me of 2013, where again, it was a very theatrical, intricate set to gag that made 1230 2013 not that high quality of a show. My last thing I'll say about it is I think if you put 1230 2023 in any other spot throughout the year, it's a fine show. It's not a great show, just a fine show, and it doesn't get the
Yeah, and
hate that it got.
I think it. I mean, I think it also hurts that the year that Tweezer had, where every single version, I'm pretty sure every Tweezer of the entire year is on the bracket except for 1230.
Pretty much, yeah. I don't think the Chicago version is on the bracket.
Oh, did it not make ours? Okay,
No.
never mind. I think I had every Tweezer on my list somewhere except for 1230.
1230, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, listen, it's the curse of having expectations. But
Even Phish has expectations sometimes.
I know.
That's crazy,
So do you guys
isn't
want
it?
to talk about this Wave of Hope Cities matchup?
I do.
Because I said that. I talked about it, and then we went on a tangent.
I think the Wave of Hope wins this. I took a few points away from Wave of Hope for the really shocking transition that happens midway through, where Fishman kind of forces them into a faster space. But ultimately, I think it's a really quality version. The industrial type jamming early on is really good. I have this as 21 overall in the year. The cities I think is very good. I've expressed my love for 10-7. But the cities kind of does one thing midway through a second set, whereas Wave of Hope is a little bit more complex. So Wave of Hope wins here.
I have to shout out the transition or the segue from the cities into Slow Llama. I thought it was pretty slick. And I know we didn't include it in our bracket, but I put it on my list. So take that, guys. And as far as the Wave of Hope is concerned, I don't mind that more stark pivot point into the third section of the Wave of Hope, Brian, where Fishman is just off to the races, speed wise. The fact that it's like a race with him and Trey, and they've got some highway sizzle, kind of brought me back to some late 1.0 jams. So I enjoyed that. Agree with you. The first section, industrial tones, they get into the soup, into the syrup. It's great. I really like how dramatic the second section is. And Mike is just really, really doing some cool things in the second section of the Wave of Hope jam, kind of underneath everything. So yeah, for me, it was the Wave of Hope. It does go to the second round and does not make it past what we're going to talk about next.
Next, we have the Tweezer from Syracuse at a 4 seed up against the No Men and No Man's Land from Dix at a 13 seed. This is an awesome Tweezer. It's funny. It fell down my list and then came back up. But this is amazing jamming. It's like 27 minutes, I think. I was lucky enough to be with Scott Marks on the lawn at Syracuse as this jam was happening, and getting to hear a tease and log it at the same time as Scott Marks was pretty exciting. When they do that little "That's all" tease in this jam. Shout out to Scott.
Scott.
This jam is amazing, and it wins this round. But I actually have it losing to Wave of Hope in round 2. Which I just I think Wave of Hope just is a little bit better. But this Tweezer is certainly no slouch.
Yeah, I love this Tweezer. I had this ranked pretty high throughout the year. It landed at 12 for me. That's all jamming. Another Goose Phish alignment, as that was a
Here we go.
very happy space for Goose during early summer 2023. For me, it's the back segment of Paige McConnell going absolutely like a mad scientist, just going wild on the synthesizers that pushes it over the edge. It's an interesting argument because I think that you could make the case that the Wave of Hope from MSG is more unified than the Tweezer from Syracuse, but I love the individual segments of the Tweezer from Syracuse just a little bit more. That I just keep going with that. So that makes it into the round of 16 for me before losing to the Chuck Dust Torture.
Chuck Test Torture Reprise. I could immediately identify the Genesis That's All theme, but I could not place the name of the song while the jam was happening. So that was satisfying to be like, I know this. What Genesis song is this? I know this.
Consider yourself someone who understands the importance of Genesis without knowing Genesis. That is a lot of us.
Right. One of my first albums was gifted to me by my Aunt Susie was We Can't Dance, and I took it out of the long cardboard sleeve as a sixth grader, and I listened to it once, and I was like, I think I'm good here.
It holds up.
Okay, fair enough.
It holds up. Okay.
I will say that, like many of the Tweezers we have discussed, this one briefly revisits the Tweezer theme around 19, 20, 21 minutes, but it doesn't get all the way back to it. And Brian, you're right. Over top, some Slinky Fish momentum. Paige just goes nuts while the skeletal Tweezer frame is kind of still there. That's very satisfying. They're not playing Tweezer, but you can sense the DNA. But Paige is just going off and just kind of playing horizontally almost. His sounds are just expanding over everything. So for me, it was the Tweezer. I have this going into the Sweet 16, past the Wave of Hope, but then it bumps up against the Chalk Dust Torture that we've discussed.
Can I just say really quickly, the
Yes.
No Man and No Man's Land, talking about dim vibes, not a dry eye in my section. Nobody was frowning or looking bored. That No Man and No Man's Land reaches a euphoric bliss zone that is very, very special when it happens. And every single one of us hugging, high-fiving, having the greatest time before it segues into Fast Llama.
Yeah.
OG
Listen,
Llama.
Sand No Man
great
Llama
jam.
was a hell of a segment in that set.
Great segment.
Maybe we probably should have had that together for the bracket. You know that
It doesn't work.
For
There's
doing
no
segues.
segue.
That's a segment that's worthy. You know that could be a 1 seed. I don't know.
That is not how not how segues
listen,
work,
just
Ryan. You know,
sheer
you're just
volume.
gaslighting now. You're just
Of course I am.
gaslighting now.
Obviously, I'm just
It's
gaslighting
okay.
you, Brian. It's part of the fun.
Obviously.
Next, our final segment of this region, we've got the 6 seed Down with Disease from the Hollywood Bowl up against the 11 seed Ruby Waves from Dick's. This Ruby Waves was lower on my list, I think. Wasn't super memorable for me as I was looking back at the bracket. As good as it is, I had it at 49. Justin, you had it at 32, and Brian at 57. But this Disease is amazing, despite the fact that they completely bungle the beginning of the song. I had this 16. Brian, you had it at 20, and Justin had it at 38. So curious where it would have landed if Justin hadn't fucked up the seating. But you know, that's where we are in this bracket.
People can't hear this. I am dead-eyeing you so hard right now in our little video chat. This was a big upset.
Justin.
Yeah, right back at you. This was a big upset for me. But Brian, go ahead.
I love this Disease. I love how evil it is. I love how committed to the bit it is. One thing that, in listening back to Spring Phish, they locked in on themes and dragged them out as long as possible in a good way. Thinking of the Blazon, the cities that were very sunny from Hollywood Bowl, thinking of the Fuego, Set Your Soul Free, that are very evil and kinetic from the Greek theater. The Down with Disease is like a 1997 jam toned down from the funk. It's just evil and riffy. It is skronky in a really cool way. I love this Ruby Waves. I'm a big fan of it. I remember when it happened at Dick's. I remember thinking that Trey and Fishman were locked in on this. Tried to recreate the beats that they kept playing. Bear with me for a second. Go 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 go. That was that back and forth between Trey and Fishman in a way that I just loved that whole run until Sunday night when it was supposed to rain and it didn't rain and they didn't let us in until 8:30 and then they played one set. Here's a show before we get on the flight to get out of here. The first 3 nights though had those moments in a really really incredible way. So Great Ruby Waves, I have it ranked as 57, which is again only a sign of how good this year was. But the Disease wins pretty easily and then loses in the next round for me.
I had both of these jams ranked in the 30s, so they're fairly comparable. I think perhaps just because some of the other jams amongst that spring run were so strong in comparison, and this may be unfair of me, but the Down with Disease had a couple of moments. Trey is doing some Allman Brothers stuff at about 9 minutes in. As they sort of round out the jam, many minutes later, Paige and Mike are kind of low in the mix. It's not a 4-way conversation. It's more of a 2-way conversation to my ear as Trey is doing his lead guitar thing on top of some awesome Fishman drums. So perhaps that's why I knocked it down a tad. Just to be contrarian, went with the Ruby Waves over the Down with Disease. It's a fairly decent size upset for me, but it only goes to the second round here because it's going to run in to a big boy from Philadelphia.
We've got the Man Carini at a 3 seed up against the Mexico Stash at a 14 seed. Before we talk about this Carini, this Stash is awesome. This Stash is amazing. Like,
yeah,
more Stash like this, please. More jamming like this, please. Quite frankly, would love to see this pop up again. But this Carini is a behemoth. Interesting to look at the kind of gap in our rankings here. I'm the outlier on this one. I have it 6 overall. Justin has it 17, and Brian has it 16. This Carini's cool. I think because you have the version from Alpharetta the week before where you have this like peaky kind of layered jam, and then you have this, which is that magnified. And I think it's really cool how they're able to keep the momentum up with basically just a peak jam for 20 minutes. I think they execute it really, really well. You know, it doesn't sound like it gets stale. They come at it from a couple of different angles. Really great Trey in this jam, and I'm a huge fan of it. I'm surprised that you guys have it out of your top 10. Brian, I know you specifically have been vocally a little bit lower on it, and Justin, obviously, you clearly are too. But I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts on why you have it a little low. I actually have this making the Elite 8, upsetting the 2 seed of this region.
I mean, I think that answers your question right there. I need a little bit of darkness and a little bit of weirdness, and I need the band to take some chances. I think that this Carini is excellent. I think your comparison to the Alpharetta version is really, really spot on. This is a 97.9, the Loop classic rock version of Phish jamming, which I am here for, man. We all
is that a Colorado station or where is that?
No, Chicago's okay. All classic rock all the time. That probably plays grunge now, which would never have been on classic rock radio when I was a kid. No, man, I think it's a great jam, and I think that you're absolutely right. It is impressive that over 22 minutes they keep this momentum building and they never relinquish from that. I think that it's just a little one note to me. It's to me the equivalent of having, you know, a really solid lager a really solid light beer on a summer's day while you're grilling burgers. Nothing wrong with that, man. Everybody needs a big old fat glass of Pilsner. Like it's good stuff. It does not have the depths that I'm looking for. So it loses ultimately to the Set Your Soul Free, but a huge celebratory jam. I'm into it, man. Number 16 is no knock from me.
Yeah, it was 17th this year, which in a phenomenal year such as 2023 is an accomplishment. Similar vibes for me. It's only briefly Hive Mind, where it's a four-way conversation. It's a great jam. There's a little bit of like Set Your Soul Free vibes to it, while it stays original. And they had played Set Your Soul Free in the prior slot, so I always find that satisfying. It's great. It just didn't quite have that depth for me. I actually didn't have the Mexico stash in my honorable mentions, or the bracket. I thought that
Why?
It's good, and I love Stash. Stash was my first favorite Phish song. The Stash version on a live one from Great Woods in '94 summer. It's one of my around 11 minutes. It's one of my favorite Phish moments of all time. I actually thought the Star Lake Stash was a little more satisfying, a little grand piano, like moments of grandeur there, and a nice satisfying move back. But yeah, this was a nice stash. It just didn't quite make it up that high on the list. The Carini for me, for all the things that I said, does beat the Dick's Ruby Waves, and that's as far as it goes.
I have the stash at 43 for the year. I think it's a great version. I think it's very hypnotic, very cool jamming. But this is the inverse of the Soul Planet from Burgettstown. This is where taste comes into play.
Yes. Yes, it does.
I'm offended.
Neither good nor bad. That's not what I'm saying. It's your personal.
I'm not aligned with you guys on this Carini, so we're gonna agree on a lot of things in this bracket. But we're going to disagree slightly on some others. And luckily, it's not like this stash is like a top 10 jam of the year that you're missing, right? Because if it was, we would have been giving you shit for the last 11 months.
Could you envision a world where there's a stash that's a top 10 jam of the year?
Outside of like 1997?
No, I mean from now moving forward. What if it's somewhere in 2024, there's a 30-minute stash?
Anything's possible. Anything's possible. I really hope so.
That would be awesome.
Possible.
I think that the way that they were playing Stash in 2021, the Deer Creek version, the Shoreline version, there's another one in there that I'm definitely forgetting, and I apologize to everyone who has the Phish.net. Eugene, thank you. I think if they had expanded and further explored the themes that they were exploring in those three versions, we could see a world where there is one. I think that what happens a lot with Stash is they get to a really cool space, and then Trey remembers, we've got to finish this, and then where there would be a new segment, there's a return to Stash. It reminds me almost of Split Open and Melt in that standpoint. However, I think that the depths that they reach in Split Open and Melt on a regular basis are more satisfying than the depths that they reach on Stash. It's kind of the middle ground between what happens with David Bowie when they just hint at a jam and then they're like, ooh, we're freaked out by that. What if we forget how to finish the song? Stash kind of gets that, but it gets a little bit more satisfying. Like if they played a version of David Bowie like they played those Stashes, the internet would break. But to your point, yes, I could envision it. I don't know if it's going to happen because just they don't seem interested in coming out and opening a second set with Stash.
Yeah, they should just note for note recreate the Amsterdam Stash at a show. Like, why not? Just do it
because they already did. That's not.
I know. Right now. I know. I'm just kidding. Also, they'd be incapable of note for note recreating anything. This is Phish we're talking about.
Yeah, they have to listen to their.
I think Trey would combust if he tried playing something that he had played before. Like I just think that's not possible.
I think that's a really good way to put it.
Unless it's an Allman Brothers leaning melody somewhere in the jam.
Different. Because he can do that. He can do that for like hours on end. Next up, we have the Star Lake Everything's Right at a 7 seed up against the Mexico Down with Disease with a 10 seed. Shout out to Trey, almost teasing Dripfield in this Down with Disease. That was exciting and gave me a nice little opportunity to troll the internet last February, which is always a good time. But yeah, this Everything's Right was great. Another one of those jams that I'm glad, we have this kind of peer review process of our lists throughout the year. We like send them to each other, be like, you have this jam too low, you have this jam too high. And you guys a couple of months ago, I forget which one of you pointed out to me that I had this Everything's Right ranked way too low. For some reason, I'd kind of discounted it over the summer, didn't really go back to it very much, but then I went back to it and I was like, okay, this is a really good jam and I need to bump it up a little bit. Funny enough that I believe, is this the only Everything's Right in the bracket?
I think so.
I think, yeah.
Which is crazy given the song's history. But
Mhm.
we were pretty aligned on this. I had it 31, Justin at 26, and Brian at 28. So pretty even ranking there. But yeah, really, really solid jam against a disease that's good, not great. It's 25 minutes. Probably one of the lower ranking 25-minute jams of the year, I think, across all of our lists. I think, Brian, you were pretty spot on about this disease from the beginning. I think I overhyped it a little bit, especially given, like third show of the year. I was like, yeah, man, this is great. Brian's giving his trademark, I told you so because I'm the expert of Phish, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, Everything's Right wins this matchup and then promptly loses in the second.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. I will take all of your praise and I will put it into my ego for 2024 ranking season. We're almost there. The off season is still upon us, but we're almost there. I hope you guys are training your ears to remove all emotion and all vibes with a Z so that you can just
Can't
judge
wait.
the music accurately.
I can't wait for you to remove the vibes from seeing them on a beach.
It's going to be an interesting test. There are a couple tests that await me in Mexico that I've got to be figuring out. But no, this Everything's Right. I think these two jams being paired against each other. It's interesting. This is almost like a whack team versus versus like an Atlantic 10 team in March Madness, where it's just kind of like, neither one of these are really going to do anything, but like they got to play each other because they've been seeded against each other. This is like Dayton versus like Weber State, just kind of like, okay, we'll watch this.
Just played a show at Weber State because there's some great Dayton representation in this bracket.
Yeah, but like Dayton is in March Madness.
It's a rhetorical question.
Talk about the music year, and you're always just kind of like, you guys aren't going to
talk about the music.
It's not going to do anything. No, I think this Everything's Right is it's good. I think you did have it a little bit too low when you originally ranked it. It is not great. It is a good jam. I have this at 28. Solid way to open the second set. We talked about how this Burgettstown show kind of pushed the band in a different direction in summer tour. This disease, it is similar to the tweezer from Alpharetta. I think it's better, but it's similar to the tweezer from Alpharetta in the sense that it the length hides the fact that there's not a lot that it's saying in there. Love the Everything's Right, good jam, but it's going to lose to the next matchup we'll get to here in a second.
Yeah, I think the Star Lake Everything's Right. It's fun to listen to. It sounds good. It's not doing anything that hasn't been done before. The ending is a little bit rote. It starts off kind of churning with clav in a very familiar way. The middle is kind of nice, turns ebullient. The contrasting synths are a nice touch. But what you guys have said, I mean, the Down with Disease, it's fun. You're on the beach. It's great. It's 24 minutes, peaceful poking, then some 4.0 tones, a little Ectoplex mustard and a blissy finish, all things that have happened before. So yeah, Everything's Right gets the edge. It goes to the second round, and then it runs into what ultimately is my favorite jam from the Rutherford region.
Our final matchup of the bracket. Look at us making good time, 3 hours. Um, 15 seeds split open and melt from Mexico up against the 419 Set Your Soul Free at a 2 seed. Quick thing on this melt. I think it's funny. This one was ranked by both of you guys pretty low, 56 and 50. And I didn't rank it, but I had the MSG summer one at 50. So I think
that tracks.
It could have been interchangeable there. It's just funny that we both all had a melt around 50. You're shaking your head because you have you think this one's clearly better, which is fine. But none of those melts can compare to this Set Your Soul Free. This is a triumph. This was my favorite jam from Spring Tour. I remember when I accidentally ended up on a bonus episode of HF Pod at the end of April.
Accidentally.
Well, accidentally, I dropped into the StreamYard to say hi after the episode, and I think RJ was like, "Hey, you want to be on a bonus episode?" And I was like, "Okay." But
Congratulations, you're now the host. I'm going to go do something else.
Funny how that works. But this Set Your Soul Free is amazing, and I love it. And I've always described like the end of it, like that dark part is just like your impending doom coming for you. And it's amazing. Funny enough, like I love Dark Phish, but for some reason I have the Carini beating it. And I stand by my bracket. But by Carini I mean the man Carini, which does inevitably lose to the MSG Chalk Dust. But this Set Your Soul Free is phenomenal stuff. Again, it's that dark sound from the spring. I really hope we see consistent jamming in that vein come back in 2024, because that was a really amazing bunch of shows where they were just going in. And again, it's that Greek magic that you talked about all the way at the beginning of the bracket. Just amazing stuff.
Yeah, I really like this split up in a melt. I mean, I think to your point about this version versus the MSG one, this one has a little bit more of that. They both hang out in the danger zone. This one for me gets a little bit more into that kind of industrial electronic kind of space that feels weird and feels agitated, whereas the MSG one feels a little bit more rockish to me with a WK. It also is one of those sneaky, I think the track timing of the MSG one is like 16 minutes and it's really like a 13-minute jam. So like the ideas kind of peter out a little bit earlier.
Sure.
But either way, this Set Your Soul Free, this is the clear winner for me. The darkness, the zone that they get into, you're absolutely right. It taps into where that Fuego was from the night before. One of the cool things about Spring Tour was every time you thought, are they about to kind of fall off and play just a set of songs here, something would happen.
Right.
Something would happen, and this Set Your Soul Free really does that for that 419 show, which is what ultimately ends that run on a really high note. I mean, I'm just looking at it right now. You get Mike's into that Sea of Stars that we talked about, into Weak Pog, into Cool It Down, into Set Your Soul Free. That doesn't make a lot of sense set listing wise to me. And you're kind of just like, okay, you're going to get a 9-minute Set Your Soul Free here, and then Loving Cup, and then a Character Zero, and then an Antelope, and okay, we're done. Instead, you get this 20-minute Set Your Soul Free that just goes into a really demented zone, really wild space of music, into what's the use, into Loving Cup. Hey, there it is. But because of the Set Your Soul Free, you get to like really celebrate the end of this run here at the Greek. Incredible stuff. I have this going all the way to the Elite Eight. Losing to the Chalk Dust, which ultimately goes to the Final Four before losing to the Tweezer Simple.
I think my favorite thing about the melt in Mexico is like it's kind of a rolling boil at the end with Trey playing some pretty sizzling leads, but more importantly, Fishman just going gangbusters on the crash cymbal. Like even just saying that is like, 2.0. I miss that chaotic, dark Fishman sound. But I love the Greek Set Your Soul Free. This is my 4th favorite jam of the whole year. So I actually have this beating the Chalk Dust Torture and going, into the Final Four where it does bump in to the Tweezer Simple from night 1 at the Greek. I love how patient this jam starts out. They just kind of let Fishman do his snappy thing. They're chill. Trey's Jedi descending vibes that mark the second segment of this jam around 11 minutes are really, really satisfying. And as they move into the third movement, there's a kind of a Set Your Soul Free DNA, but they're not just reprising the song. Um, I love how that descending skeletal melodic structure that Trey introduced kind of keeps on going through the end of the jam before it melts into those oozy, sprawling tones. So it's got a little bit of everything. It's not trying to go any one particular place, doesn't really find a big peak, but super satisfying and really emblematic of kind of the weird, dark, patient, noisy, melodic way that they played at their best all year long. So comes out of the Rutherford region for me.
Can I ask you guys a question now that we're at the end of the overall bracket?
Yes, Brian, please do.
So your final fours, read your final fours.
1 seeds.
JB?
I have the Greek Tweezer Simple, that's a 1 seed. The Dayton Ruby Waves, that's a 1 seed. The MSG Fuego is a 1 seed. And then the Greek Set Your Soul Free, which is the 2 seed.
Okay. So the only 2 seed I've got is the Ruby Waves from Alpharetta, which is, I think, again, this is a taste thing that we're getting into. But tell me your Final Four and your championship matchups. Are they close or are they blowouts in your mind?
I mean, they're pretty much blowouts. I have Dayton Ruby Waves over the MSG Fuego, which I went with my list here, right? And I think I had the ranking there. Dayton Ruby Waves was above, and again, as we talked about at the beginning, there's nothing that can stand in the way of the Tweezer Simple. It's too good to not win this bracket here. I think there's more of a competition if you eliminate the Simple, but or separate them, obviously. But with them together, it's an hour of music. It's not losing.
Yeah, it's a behemoth. Just hypothetically, if you were to only talk about the Tweezer, I have that scored as an 8.5. I have the Greek Set Your Soul Free as an even 8. Things are on the other side of the bracket. I have the Dayton Ruby Waves as an 8.5, and I have the MSG Fuego as a 7.9. So no, the final four matchups were not super duper close.
I think I'd have these. So I'd have the Ruby Waves of the Ruby Waves as a pretty close matchup. Tweezer Simple over Chalk Dust. I think ultimately I love segments that Chalk Dust so much that that would be pretty close. And I think that like I said, the last 10 minutes of that Ruby Waves matches up with anything in the Tweezer Simple. I think it's there's no question to my mind that the Tweezer Simple is the best jam of the overall year. But I think that when you look at it compared to those other jams, like those are no slouches. Those are really, really high quality jams that the band played throughout the year that to me just showcase how incredible of a year it was. Last question. Justin, have you ever scored a jam at 10? And if so, what is it?
Ooh.
Good question. I mean, to be honest, I've just sort of evolved this scoring system over the last handful of years. So no, not over the last, not in 4.0 or late 3.0 have I scored anything a 10. I love like the Bozeman Tweezer. I don't think that there's a wasted second of that jam from 1994 that might approach that territory. But we talked about philosophically when we started this process of making our own bracket, what are the things that are important to you in a jam? And I think that helped me congeal my thoughts about how I score these jams. I have to find my Word doc of the 5 things that we came up with, but are they playing Hive Mind? Like how four-way is the improvisation? Are they charting new territory? That's important. Does the jam elicit emotion? or is it memorable? I think both of those things are two sides of the same coin. Are the pivot points between the different sections effortless? That's also something that's important. So it's hard to imagine them playing a 10, but the fact that this year the Tweezer is a 9, the Ruby Waves from Dayton is an 8.5. I mean, there are years in the past where like the top jams were 7s or 7.5s.
Yeah.
So it's really a testament to how strong this year was for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I think about like a 10, it's the Orlando Stash from 1995, where it's just every aspect of that is full throttle Phish jamming, Phish, experimentation. Every move that they make is the right move, and then it goes on for 45 minutes. So I'm right there with you.
Another segue
having a very high
jam.
bar. Huge seg. That jam does not exist without the segs.
Someday, maybe. I don't know.
Someday you will do a full re-listen to what is supposed to be your favorite band's history and understand what their intentions are, and
I know exactly
make you better.
what is supposed to be my favorite band. Okay, all right. Let's not be under any illusions here. They are my favorite band.
Yeah,
by far.
You're talking to Ray Below. I know.
All right. Just in case people listening, although I don't think anyone listening 3 hours in, it doesn't get the point. Phish is my favorite band. But I'm very excited for both of you because you both get to see Phish in the next couple of months. Which is very exciting. I think the last couple of years that hasn't happened where you both see Phish before me. But Brian, you're going to Mexico in a couple of weeks, and Justin, you have very, very exciting hometown shows coming up that you may or may not get tickets to.
I still don't have, as of time of recording here in early February, I still have not secured tickets to the Sphere. I'm very hopeful that something will come through. My friend in town has a connection. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm also excited that Iggy is playing an after show after night one at the Sphere. That ticket was
live pod.
Yeah, that was an easy one to secure. But yeah, hopefully we do have some Sphere Phish, and gosh, I hope that they do what can be done in that room. We'll see. Can't wait to report back to you all.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy for you to get to see them there. And hey, if you've got a lead on some tickets and you like the weather in Vegas and you like hearing about the weather in Vegas, I mean, you should give Justin your Sphere extras because nobody does more for the weather in Vegas than Justin. Not just talking about it, he makes it happen. When there's a good day of weather, it's Justin. When there's a bad day of weather, Justin's day off.
The thing about April in Las Vegas, it is going to be windy AF, I'm sure, at some point during the Sphere run. So I'm sorry in advance. But yeah, looking forward to it. Can't wait to see how it goes. And Brian is going to be attending Mexico. So we're super duper jealous of him. But guys, this was so much fun. It's always a blast. I can't wait till we figure out our next project and make it happen. But cheers to 2023. I think properly rated, but also perhaps a little underrated.
Thank you, guys. This was a really, really awesome episode. I'm so glad that we got to spend the entire year thinking so hard about this, communicating so intensely. Even in our disagreements, we unify around this band that is supposed to be our favorite band, and it's an amazing, amazing thing. And I am glad that we were able to dedicate 6.5 hours today to talking through them. What a year. Hopefully 2024 is half as good as 2023.
I don't hope it's half as good. I hope it's much more than that. But yes, thank you both once again for joining me today. It's been a pleasure doing another bracket episode. As always, thank you everybody for listening to this incredibly long episode, as per usual, because we like to talk, and we're all glad that you like to listen. So everybody, have a great time out there, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening.